Welcome back to Total Disclosure, the podcast. Today we have an exclusive episode just for Total Disclosure listeners. Now, in the shadows of the most classified programs on Earth, there's one man who is risking everything: his reputation, his career, and even his life. And now he's not a career spy. He's not a politician. He is a contractor who had an experience, who stumbled upon something that was never meant to be seen. In the plains of Kansas, advanced materials or metamaterials, technology that defy known physics, objects that could be ours, but the question more so becomes, where did we get them? What he found changed his life forever, and then the death threats followed. Federal investigators got involved, and yet he is still choosing to speak. This is not another blurry, lights in the sky story, however, a first-hand account from inside the machine. And for the first time, in this exclusive, no-holds-barred interview, a man known only as Whistling Mike steps out of the darkness. Now, we did have to protect his identity, so we filmed this episode accordingly, given the circumstance. He will tell you what he saw and what they tried to bury, and why powerful forces still want this story silenced. This is Total Disclosure from a man who never wanted to, but was forced to speak up. Welcome to the show. My next guest is UFO whistleblower, Whistling Mike. Welcome back, everybody. I'm so happy to be doing this today. You know, it's not every day that I get to sit down with someone with such an incredible insight into the world of the Black program, government contracting world, and, you know, why, especially right now, we are taking this so seriously. So, of course, I want to start the interview with maybe getting a little bit about you and why we have to film this way. I just kind of want to get that out of the way. Why do we have to conceal your identity?
I was working on concealing my own identity, and then naturally some things changed, mainly with Tim Phillips when he did go on the McWest podcast and announced that there was a particular person who had physical material and pieces, and he felt like that person was trying to extort AARO, and that based on what he heard from the senator's staffers, he wouldn't have that person around his family, and then went on to conclude that they had turned that over to the FBI and so on.
You know, AARO or someone tried to get AARO's seal of approval. There was another claim made that there was a person, and he now goes by Whistling Mike on X, and he's made some claims, and Burleson has said he's an interesting person, and he's a defense contractor who's trying to get contracts with the U.S. government, and he came to AARO with a story And what you say is that there was an attempt at extortion. Can you address this and clear this up? What happened there?
We had a referral when I was the acting director. Chairman of one of the oversight committees asked us to meet with an individual that claimed to have reported to us a UAP part. When we actually met with this individual, what we realized is the claim was that he recovered a part that fell from an advanced U.S. stealth aircraft. So the part that he recovered was actually a piece of government property. This individual came up with a new manufacturing process to duplicate the part, developed a procedure to be able to detect these advanced aircraft. At one point, there was a claim that wanted us to purchase the part, or they was going to sell it to another foreign entity such as the Chinese. To us, that sounded like extortion, and that's how we treated it. And we referred it off to the FBI. But that was kind of the end of that. The fact that someone recovered a part from aircraft, that right there means it's not an AARO's mission set. AARO investigates UAP.
Some of the things within his statements that he said that he's missed is he also forgot to confirm that even within the AARO office, they did validate the death threats that came in from adversary countries. So with that said, folks are looking for me. And it's not just the community that is here, such as the cases we've seen with a lot of folks that have gone missing and we don't know why. I'm on that list. And so showing my face helps them. It's not about guarding myself from the public or getting to know people. It's just safety for me and my family.
So it's safe to say that you're not hiding from the UFO community or even the public in general. You're protecting yourself against the man, quote unquote, or, the people that seek to do harm to those who get too close to this subject, but also interact with the public.
Correct. So when China says they're going to wipe you off the face of the earth, they usually mean it. So showing them what I look like doesn't help anyone out other than them.
So, okay, with that being said, I really do want to say thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. Can you tell the audience a bit about yourself and what you're hoping to get from an interview like this? So,
yeah, originally when I started, this was a project where I happened to come upon a UAP craft, and it worked through its various stages. Now, I always looked at it as a technology standpoint, as a business standpoint, as we built it. So as we've developed technology, not just within the UAP community, but goes directly into the defense contracting community, that's where I've been. However, with that said, I am forging my own path. That's been said to us from several senators, from the Pentagon, and from funding. You're in uncharted territory. So I have ran into issues getting a contract through, but I've went through several titles, whether it be witness, whistleblower. As of right now, I'm just focused on one, and that is essentially an arms dealer. That's where I go forward from here on out. However, what brought me here is a bit what I'm going to share with you today.
So you're a bit like a Tony Stark, right? Before he became Iron Man.
I'm a bit like the Merchant of Death at this point in time. There's real life people that have to challenge the government. There's real life people that are the one guy. It doesn't do me any good to compare myself to the person, as we know now, that bought the direct energy weapon from, as they described it, Russian criminal network that then developed a discombobulator, or where exactly they got the technology from, what that guy's name was for the ghost murmur. But there's people out there that have what they need that lead us 100 years ahead. I happen to be one of them, and this is usually what you go through.
Walk me through that day that you came across this craft. Had you thought about UFOs, or it seems like you're a pretty straight-laced gentleman, like, not saying that you wouldn't be thinking about the existential things, but had you ever had a interest in the phenomena before what happened?
I didn't. I mean, I remember, being back younger, seeing with buddies one night, the Fire in the Sky movie.
Travis Walton case.
That
Yeah.
was a bit before, things started to develop where you understand when they say based on a true story, that doesn't mean much. So that was really the only little bit of knowledge that I could remind you. Yeah, I saw E.T., Star Trek, Star Wars. It wasn't because I was into
UFOs.
UFOs. It was just that's everybody's childhood of that decade.
Pop culture. So
Yeah.
you really relegated yourself. You were more relegated towards the pop culture side of it, like as a storytelling thing. You never.
Yeah.
Did you ever think you'd run into what you ran into?
No, never. I mean, for people that are Gen X, I often wonder about like these generations coming up to sound like a grumpy old man. Like we grew up in the day of like, Back to the Future. So you really, in your idea, had it that in 2020, 30, you were going to have flying
Flying
this, flying
cars.
that. And people always just said, yeah, that's how it'll be. Now everybody has kind of flipped that script where they're like, oh, we don't have this technology.
Right.
How the hell do you know? Because that's how my generation kind of viewed it. So that was always how I looked at it, is this is advanced technology versus, oh, that must be a UFO. If you get there, fine, but that was never my first idea.
So you're growing up. You're really seeing the phenomenon just from the pop culture, the Steven Spielbergs. What life did you choose, professionally? Give me a little bit about your upbringing and why you chose the path that you're on right now.
Yeah. I grew up in a pretty poor environment. A lot of that just has to do with people making it through, young parents. My sister was diagnosed early with a disease. Then I ended up coming across the same disease. And, sometimes it's not digging your own hole deeper. It's just life trying to bury you. So I know what government cheese tastes like. And so I was pretty confident that my one goal in life was going to be to make sure, I got my own family and my own. As you get older, it's your responsibility, right?
Right.
So I went through those normal processes of work and jobs. I was always very eager to get the corporate ladder climbed, made it all the way to the VP of a publicly traded company. And when that company ended up being in a purchase buyout from another larger company, a merger, my job was often the times the VPs, because whoever the buying company is uses their VPs. You're kind of isolated out of it. Consulted for a while, but then I was like, I know what I got here, which
Right.
I'm already hearing. There's people, within the industry have been out with me saying no one else can do this. That was going to become my full-time gig, and that's when I made the jump to do it.
Okay. What is your current role or responsibility?
This is it. This is life. I've got everything into pushing this product line, essentially, which is what it is. And the government knows they need it. They don't really want to pay for it like this, so they're throwing the Invention Secrecy Act at me. But there are individuals who deal with this in the government to fund these people, because we do no good for the men and women in uniform or our country fighting it out. So I'm not going to roll over and let you take it with the Invention Secrecy Act. So then what happens? Well, you either battle in court or it stays on the shelf for 10 years when you could be saving people. So luckily I have found the funding people who are like, there's a way forward. It's not always easy. There's a lot of red tape, but that's the method we're trying to push through, is we can still get this done. That's my whole focus. That's everything I have into this. When I started this company, I started it like any normal company. Very small. Time I had, I was making a lot of money then as a VP. And then as it progressed, you put more into it, you get another accolade, you reach another achievement, you put more into it. At this point in time, like I said, and I think Tim Phillips confirmed, we've got the government by the balls with what we can do. So this is me. This is everything right now.
Yeah, because I spoke. That's how we actually met. Not met, but met in that way of online.
Yeah.
Right? Is when I was doing the Tim Phillips interview, and you kind of wanted to see what he was going to say. So there was a big, I felt like there was a lot of eyes on that interview simply because of you. So it was a very interesting dichotomy for me to be like, all right, now I feel like I've been shoehorned into something, right? Something larger than I expected.
Well, you got caught up And luckily, cooler heads prevail as we talk to each other, which is the way to do things. But essentially, you got caught up in a battle that had been brewing, and is still brewing. And luckily, we didn't end up with you as collateral damage in it. Instead, you've worked your way through it. So I give you credit for that. But yeah, it was kind of hot to get started.
Right. So, I ask these questions because you are a human being, right? You're a normal guy. You're just, you came across something that is unique, and not many people get a chance to be, not let alone see something like that, but to have access to it on another level where you're now holding evidence to some degree. So can you walk me through, so you're building your company,
Yeah. So
say as much as say as much as you can without giving, if we have to bleep anything out, I'm happy to do that, but I'd like to hear it all. So what puts you in a position to come across something like you did? Can you tell me that whole story so we can kind of
I
get
think
that?
that's best. So
Yeah.
it's still by chance. So, of every company I had invested in, because even when I was working full time, I'm still, entrepreneur, looking at various companies, was involved, had part of a winery I owned. I mean, that's the normal, what you do, right?
You're an entrepreneur.
Invest. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So one particular company I had, because of my upbringing, even though I may be in a pinstripe Armani suit in a boardroom, I'll still throw on the gloves and help make a long drive or get dirty. I mean, that's me. So this particular assignment that we had for a higher technology that dealt with a whole lot of monitoring equipment on a higher level of, you don't know what's going on until you really hit it with this sort of monitoring equipment. We had went quite a bit out of town. Everybody just voted to come home. Do you stay and waste a day, or do you just want to get home? And I said, hey, look, I'll throw in on the drive. So my kind of end of the drive was pushing the early hours of the morning, almost home, and we come across lights out in the field. And it's the sort of thing where you don't feel like anything should be out there. It's like, what could have lights, say, 50 foot up in the middle of, a wheat field? So
Can you say where you were? What state?
sure. So this is happening in Kansas.
Kansas?
Yeah.
Okay, just keep it there.
And it
So-
happened in an area that I know well enough to know that if the lights are on, the sun's out, there's nothing over.
The horizon that,
It's
would
flat
explain it.
Kansas. Yeah, there's nothing out there. So
Yeah, for anyone who hasn't been out there, they call it flyover state for a reason.
Yep, the
There's
plains.
nothing but plains, and 2-lane road and plains on either side.
that's exactly what it is. So it was one of those things, because we were so close to home, and you're talking about a bunch of people that have various, engineering backgrounds, and we're curious.
Right? I didn't. So now you're seeing this as as someone who's kind of not educated in the sense of but you're trained. You're a trained observer in wait, that should not be there. That
Correct.
should not be. So can you explain? So it's lights in the sky, but what does it look like? What is there color?
At this point in time, you just have some really bright lights.
Okay.
White, kind of a yellowish looking light. Nothing, there's no blinking reds, greens, blues, nothing like that. You just
Just one light or several?
two.
Two. Okay.
Two, what I'll just refer to without going into too much detail as panel lights, but good sized lights.
Okay.
So because of that, one of the guys that was with me joked, is it the Field of Dreams over there? Is there now, lights? I mean,
Aegis
that
in the outfield.
we weren't like, oh my gosh, this is a UFO. That was the furthest thing from anyone's mind. It was just like, what in the world could be on over there? So no one else is out on the road. It's just us. Started to kind of head that direction, not necessarily because we were chasing it, but that's still just kind of on the way home. So we come to a stop, just driving home, start heading that way, and what becomes evident to me is that it's essentially pacing us, tracking away at the same speed I'm going at it. Keep in mind, we're not in a chase. So if I'm doing 30, I haven't put the pedal to the metal and tried to run anything down. It's still an analytical, what is this? Windows are down, you're listening, can't hear anything. It's Kansas, so you can hear the bugs, in the summer. Completely quiet. Still don't have a clue, and the reason I say that is my mind's thinking helicopter, something like this. And you should be picking up some sort of noise.
As it grows closer and
Right,
closer.
right. And again, just a completely quiet night. So we end up getting closer and closer, and eventually, rather than it tracking away, although it did track quite a bit before we got up to it, it becomes stationary. We get it closer and closer, and at that point in time, you can tell there is a craft, which again, in my mind, from the silhouette as you get close and the light shining in your eyes, still kind of seems to be like a helicopter.
Okay, so you're still thinking helicopter.
Again, it's stationary, so it's obviously not a jet or something. You'd be going a couple 100 miles an hour. So
you're starting to rule things out in your head.
that's exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
And one of the other things, this is like, there was no guns a-blazing. Before I even went that direction coming from the stop, I timed it on the clock because I was like, well, if that's a plane coming in low, knowing with the speed that planes do, at least 100 miles an hour to not fall out, and it's not got here. So it's obviously not moving. I mean, that's how we're going through this. Mm-hmm. So as we start getting closer to it, again, my mind is from my eyes is saying this has got to be some sort of helicopter. Again, there's no think of like this is a UFO. So I really slow down because I'm thinking I can't hear anything like I should be hearing. The wash should be, at this point in time, you should be able to see it from the light coming down on the ground. I should be able to hear this thing. And my mind's still saying, like, you got to be careful, not in the sense of danger, but like, I don't want to drive into a scene where they're landing to pick someone up because I grew up in the sticks. And if someone gets hurt bad, there's no time for an ambulance.
Yeah, they bring
You send a helicopter into a wheat field, and it waits until the ambulance gets there. And, like, you don't want to be the dummy that just drove into the middle of something like that. So
Totally understandable.
it was really just slow. Even though I ended up getting time with it, I probably wasted half of that time just through the process of working out what it was and getting up to it. Because, I mean, we're just happen upon it, and you're trying to figure out what's going on. What is this?
How many people were with you?
Me and 3 others.
So it's a full car.
Yeah.
There's 3 other people that witnessed this event.
Correct. And they're still with me on my team today.
Okay. So this thing's tracking you. It should have come, if it was any jet or helo, it should have made its way either over you at this point or been directly over you. But you said you're starting to make out some sort of craft. Are you starting to see through the light and like, how much are you seeing? How did you determine that?
So the light is bright. It's very bright. But with that said, it's not like I'm looking at the sun and I know don't look at the sun, right? There's people that damage their eyes from looking at eclipses. It's the same sort of system here. At this point in time, when you can see a craft, I'm willing to risk blinding light to figure out what the hell is there. So coming up to it, it's essentially stationary. There's a little bit of a wobble, less than 50 foot off the ground, but it's not, a wobble is probably incorrect. I mean, it's moving. It's not like on a statue, but it's a controlled, steady.
I find it interesting that you use that word, wobble. So is it maybe floating wall? Is there a bit of a fluidity to it? I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No, you're getting there. Think of, and I'll immediately get there. Think of if something was human tech, you would have a computer system trying to, just like a drone.
Continuously even itself.
Exactly. So if you've flown a drone and you get into some wind or something, that's kind of what it was like. So there was definitely it was regulating, staying where it wanted to stay.
Okay.
Is what it would seem like.
And now, I guess I just want to clarify this. So you're driving on the road and you're coming up to it?
At this,
So you're moving towards it.
correct.
Okay.
And for a while, it's tracking away from us. So it's not leaving, but we're not getting any closer. Eventually, for whatever the reason be, it's stationary, and now we're catching up to it. But again, it's the slowest race, 40 mile an hour, 30 mile an hour sort of coming up to it. Again, you're just trying to figure out what the hell it is without getting yourself into trouble.
So what happens next?
We get to the side of it, so now we're kind of without the blinding light. I mean, it's still there. Analyzing it, looking at it, it's a craft. So my mind, for people that don't know about Kansas, especially in the Wichita area where I'm from, it's actually known as the air capital of the world. I know everybody thinks horses and cowboys, but we hold records on where all your aerospace and aircraft come from. Every major player is there. And so I've seen craft my whole life. My father used to work on the space shuttle program back when we had that in the day. All my family's built craft. I mean, I know what I'm looking at. No numbers, no letters, no, marker lights, nothing. So immediately I thought to myself, this is not what we thought we were normally going to get into. This is no helicopter.
Any rivets, seams, or anything like that?
There
that are
was,
visible?
without going into too much detail, it's not some sort of a blob or figure. I mean, that was one of the things that we were, the whole time this is going on, my group is talking back and forth to each other because we're trying to analyze what we're seeing and what we're thinking. And that was one of the immediate things I first thought to myself is this looks obviously not so much earthly made because I wasn't thinking aliens at that point in time, but I was like the performance,
Advanced.
what it's doing, it shouldn't be doing. But obviously this looks like human hands sort of manufacturing.
We'll get to a little bit of speculation a bit later because I want to know. We'll come back to that, but so there's no insignia at all on this thing,
Nothing. And like I said, I know where to look.
right?
It's not there.
Not even test markers.
There's nothing.
Really?
So as this is going on and I'm looking, and this is an important part of it, I turn the vehicle we're in right at it from the side. And I have a little bit of elevation of where I pulled. So my headlights are on it. Turn the brights on, right? You want to see
Oh yeah.
more.
Yeah.
All of us immediately remember when we turn the brights on, it seemed to basically absorb the light. Like you could still see it. Think of like a 30-watt bulb, but you're shining an LED on it. Like you can still see it, but obviously it's absorbing most of the light. What? So at that point in time, it's confusing, right? So now in my mind, the idea of, and I hate the word alien, but I was like, what the hell is this, right?
What kind of material can absorb photon?
You're absorbing light. Keep in mind we had the window down. There's only a slight little hum to it. This thing's floating. Looking at the stuff that's under it, there was even a small little tree, not a fucking leaf's moving. What is this, right? So even for me that's not into the whole genre of aliens and UFOs, I'm questioning, what are we looking at?
Right. How's that thing? Where's the propulsion?
And it's in the middle of a field in Kansas. Not exactly testing grounds. You know what I mean? Like it's so that was my closest I've ever been to like, what am I seeing? I'm willing to analyze it and I'm willing to think down that route, but until that point in time in my life, I've never crossed that bridge.
So you're looking at this thing because you're really not sure what it is. It's absorbing your light to some degree. It's only,
Right.
Lighting it up like a 30-watt light bulb, but you pounced in some hardcore LED, right? I hate to ask, but did you know the story of Bob Lazar?
I know some of the story.
Did you watch that S4 documentary?
I have not seen that.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a part in it where they talk about having, those halogen lights where it's like two on a T-frame?
Yeah, I know what
It's
you mean.
on construction sites a lot. Well, they had those everywhere inside the craft. And no matter how many they had, it was like the craft was absorbing the light, and they could barely get this thing lit, and they had several of those, all over the place. These double halogen lights, and if you've ever seen those are outputting, a good lumen, and it's like the craft is absorbing the light and only allowing, a fraction of the photons to bounce out and back. So, again, forgive me for drawing lines here, but I can't help but think of that.
For the community, is what I'll say, making that sort of line is an actually fair line. However, just because we're on record here, Bob Lazar is full of shit, is my personal opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
you know what? Thank you for
not
being
that
honest.
it's not that doesn't match up. I'm willing to say, of course, that matches up, but I just not believe in the story that's there.
Okay, so you know what? Respect. I have respect for someone who can come out and just be like, you know what? I don't believe the guy. So,
well, in fairness, I want to say this. Because this is how you do science, and people don't understand science a lot of times. I know because I listen to what the tweets are every day, right?
Right.
The posts. We still assign a person in our team to look at that angle, right? So I took the it's human tech angle, and we'll get into the story later, and they took the it's not human tech angle. And we looked through all those cases like Lazar, the Ariel's, school. And I'm just telling you my view is on all of them, after looking at the facts and the stuff we dug up, is they're all bullshit. That was my personal and our group's opinion. It's not that we didn't look at it, we just came to a different conclusion than apparently the individuals do.
The Rura case is bullshit? Did you just say that the
school?
case of Zimbabwe is
absolute bullshit?
We're going to get into that a little bit later.
I think we should. I think we should.
Because you are the first person aside from that one kid, but we'll get into that.
We'll get into that because I'm going to pick it apart, but that's its own.
Okay.
So we came to that. I mean, we try to be fair is what I'm trying to tell people here. So when I say what I think about these people and the stories, it's not because I'm personally attacking them. It's not that I think that you don't have your own right to choose. I'm saying we legitimately researched it, looked at it, and we couldn't find anything in this foundation of UFOs, including Roswell, that we could ever be like, yeah, that's a legit one. The only one that comes up is the Nimitz, and I think I've made it clear by now that I think that's human tech. So that's how my opinion of Lazar and the rest come across.
You think the Tic Tac is human made?
Yeah.
And okay, well, and sure we'll get into that again. But all right,
Well, back at the scene here. So now we're looking at it with the brights on it.
You're looking at it.
We've got the windows down. Okay. Again, I've used this term over and over. Not guns a-blazing. I'm very careful of the moves I make, even today with what I'm going through with the government. Everything's planned out. And so we're sitting there and we're listening to the hum, right? It does have a noise. It's light. It's not what you should hear from a craft that's essentially levitating. But all of us, as crazy as this sound, looking at each other, we're like, it seems safe. There's no sparks coming out. It doesn't sound like it's going to blow, right?
It's not even moving the tree you talked
right.
about.
So I know it sounds weird to say it seems safe, but, especially for people that are engineers and curious, like how many times are you going to have this fucking shot, right? I mean, you got to make that choice. So again, we wasted a lot of time just looking at it from inside the safety of a vehicle because different people think different things. Some people panic. Some people get too excited. We're just analyzing the whole thing as we go.
Did Travis Walton ever come back into your head in that moment?
Yep, you nailed it. So the reason I brought that up, because I'm just being honest, that was the one thing that popped into my head before we got out. Because that's a scene in that movie where he's like,
it is true.
Why'd you get out? Don't get out, right? And then you get abducted. But again, analyzing it, and I know it might sound odd, but it doesn't appear, there's not leaves turning brown and burning under it. I mean, there doesn't appear to be
any radiation signatures.
Yeah, these sort of things that would be like, oh, let's get out of here. So with that said, we got out. All of us got out. Maybe we weren't smart enough to leave a driver, but we all went to the back to get the equipment out because what else would you do? right?
Equipment?
You've got high-tech equipment to do things and see into electrical panels through walls and pick up ultrasonics and acoustics. I mean, if you're going to get in trouble, you might as well go for the big one.
You're
right?
packing? Like,
This is the business that was invested that we were coming home from. And
what
again,
are the odds?
well, that's what I tell people. The difference with me is, because these are the normal stories in Kansas, Farmer Bob's in a field, and he sees something, and that's all he's got to that story. And that's kind of what we were thinking, is like, even at this point in time with, the cell phones out and this and that, there's nothing there if you really wanted people to take you seriously.
Do you have cell phone? You have video of this
We
thing?
have a lot better than cell phone, because when you go to the back and you start getting equipment out, monitoring equipment and visual documentation equipment, we had a flare camera that was about 90 grand at the time. We get it all out. Again, now we start hurrying a little bit, but not, you don't just run underneath the craft, right? You still want to kind of
Approach with caution.
approach it around the sides, because the same way that there's nothing going on underneath of it at any point in time, because it is got that little bit of wobble, like I was saying, you don't know.
So you're approaching with caution. And how do you make your move towards this thing?
We get out, we're on foot, without having to even say anything to each other. We just know, get out everything we have for equipment, documenting, monitoring. That was the whole business that we had. That's why people, a couple 100 miles away would hire us to come in and look what they have in high technology, analyze it. It's that sort of level. So we just knew. And just like when you go into a place, everybody has a job. This person runs this person's on the computer. It was the same sort of thing. So we get up to it, not immediately underneath of it. We're taking the outside look. We're taking the outside scope of it. Eventually, of course, we end up underneath of it. We have a recorder on for voice too. So, we're reading things off, talking about things. I count this many panels. I count this many that. I mean, this is a normal, these were the right people to have for something like this.
That's amazing.
We're talking about what we're seeing on the monitoring equipment. We're talking about all this, and for about 10 minutes, it would have been way longer had we have known what we were going to be approaching or driving up to. That's what we got. Now, how does it end? Well, getting towards the end of 10 minutes, we do hear a noise, and there is what I'll refer to as a panel that comes down off of this. Again, put yourself in the shoes of individuals in Kansas that have come across in the early hours of the morning a craft that is doing this. We've hit it with everything high tech. We're talking about it. Now, engineering always sounds like this sexy term because of how advanced it is, but there's another part of engineering, which is you come to questions and the answers are kind of like a caveman. So one of the things that we came up talking is we can pick it up on a sensor, we can see it, but what is this? We have some idea what it's made from because, some of the readings coming back, but what happens essentially if you throw something at it? Again, sounds a bit odd, but that's kind of where we're at. Does it go through it? Does it bounce off? Does this thing light up before, what happens? Because you can tell a lot when it's quiet about a noise when you hear it bounce off of something.
Right.
Is it like a rock? Is it hollow? I mean, these are questions that we've kind of got to where it's we've got as much as we can possibly get with what we have. What are the other questions to it? And so
a panel
correct.
falls off as you got. Yeah, I gotta ask. Have you heard of Diana Pasulka?
I know the name, but again, I'm not as familiar with everybody into the stories.
Not to divulge too much here, but Diana, in her book, refers back to Timothy Taylor. Do you know
I
that?
know the name, but again, it's the smallest part of the story that I can remember.
They call him the Dragon.
Correct.
In Mission Control and NASA. And he's
Allegedly.
allegedly, allegedly.
Yeah.
But the guy is super elusive, and he seems to pop up everywhere, but not publicly, like with Chris Bledsoe. And again, let's for at least this part. But Diana's talking to Tim, and when she says UFO crash, he corrects her, and he tells her, "No, they're donations. They're donations." Do you think that you were possibly given what you needed at the time?
At one point in time, because of how rough this has been that we're going to go through, I did kind of think back and think to myself, like, why me? It's an honest question, especially with what we're going to get into.
Yeah.
I mean, as we just said, what are the chances of this? So am I the only person in the world that just, me and these other three people, and you got to ask yourself, why me, right? However,
I saw a UFO. Panel didn't fall off of it, though.
when we start the analysis and working through that, it's obviously human tech. And the other part of that is going to be what we identified, we believe, and this does happen a lot. You just don't hear about it, or if you don't have your head in that industry, stuff breaks all the time. The harder you have a performance, the more it breaks. And most of your nice craft, whether it be, the SR or the 117, is because they just can't keep up the maintenance.
Yeah.
Even the B2 is usually down for 2 or 3 times as much as it flies. So when you hear about how impressive it was that they did those missions in a row, it's because normally you have to bring it back and replace all sorts of stuff. So with that said, to us, it was a communication, we'll say data link failure, where it was traveling, and this happens to drones. We lose them in countries all the time because of this. You don't know where to go because this isn't a conventional motor. The idea would be you just sit down at that level waiting to go. Now, that failure of the panel, we think, was involved in it. Whether, it's hit something's wrong, we don't know.
Okay.
But we also don't know what was going on inside of it, because usually when something like this would go down, you would have a team, which we were worried about, a response team showing up, and here we are with all this equipment.
Crash
right?
retrieval team popping through.
It's got to be. Someone's got to be watching it from above with some sort of Reaper or satellite link. So, these were things I was waiting on as we're kind of being careful. Is like,
I mean, if they get a Reaper
there's
up
got to
there,
be
they already know
lights.
you're there.
Correct. The other part of that is you're also trying to figure out the problem. You always have remote ways to fix stuff. And it seemed that when this panel came off, that seemed to fix whatever the issue was. I can't explain to you how it fixed it, but it was right after this panel came off that it was actually able to essentially take back off and be gone.
What did it look like when it took off?
So you do have, and I've struggled to describe exactly, because I used to say a cavity, but that confused people because a cavity is more, embedded versus a bubble. So now I'm just going to say a bubble. Not a bubble, obviously, but if you think about kind of what you can pick up from interference or radios on and whatnot, and see it on a screen where they're actually have monitoring equipment, what electrical interference looks like. But this is visual to the eye. Still essentially a bubble, and then it's just very slight, and then it's gone. As Fravor would say, bloop.
So it either instantaneously accelerated
It's
out,
instantaneous, yeah.
where you can't process how fast it's moving, or it is literally disappearing into the fabric of. Now again,
Yeah.
that's the more magical answer, but honestly you can't say one or the other, right?
At this point, no. Obviously, we've gotten a lot further into that. But my point here is, if you think about, we'll just go very simple here. If someone shoots a gun, the bullets in the gun, you hear it, see it hit the bullseye. At no point in time do your eyes catch it. from point A to point B.
Right.
So
It just happens.
there are things, and there's many within our world that we live in, where if something is fast enough, it's how do you get that fast that quick, right? In that case, gunpowder. But your eyes aren't as good as a lot of people seem to think that they would be. Also, keep in mind you're talking about nighttime in the dark, so you're trying to judge
Okay.
where it would be.
So,
But it's gone. Let's put it that way.
But
Yeah.
it shows several observables by
Correct.
the standards of people like Elizondo, who, were a part of ATIP, which was OSAP. We don't have to get into that right now.
I've heard the observables. Almost all of them I would agree with. I know they're trying to add some more into it. But when you talk about a craft that can stop, as we get into our development of what we've learned and what we've caught, which you shouldn't be able to do instantly, just like you shouldn't be able to instantly bloop and be gone, these observables are correct.
Okay. How the craft is now gone. You're worried about a response team still, I would assume.
The whole
because-
time I've been worried about that exactly.
Right.
Right.
So, where's the thought process of, take me through what your thought process was, and when did you determine, let's grab this and get out?
So, again, growing up in the family that I did and some of the businesses I've been involved with, what people may not know is that even a lot of human technology is actually the stealth coatings are toxic. You don't want to touch them. So like when the F-117 went down and they shot the one down in Serbia or whatever it was, and the Chinese sent out people to the farmers trying to buy pieces of equipment or whatnot, so many people touched toxic material. So it was still although my brain hadn't processed everything, one thing you still know is you got to be careful
Handling it.
with this sort of handling of stuff. There's still a massive danger here. You also don't know if it's burning hot. You get up to it and it's not smoking. But I mean, there's questions.
Yeah, my toaster doesn't smoke. But
Right.
it's hot.
If you just be safe, you can avoid most things. Again, by the chance of whether it was a gift or a curse, I don't know, we're prepared for that. Because we deal with high voltage electricity and part of what the business does all the time, right?
How big is this thing? Can you?
Is
Is it possible to give me a?
It's not that big.
Okay,
Think
it's not
more of
that big.
when the shuttle comes in with heat shields. You add up so many of them, so if one fails, it's a small thing. Now all that information is on record at SSCI. It's all on AARO. But
And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, I would assume that most people watching my show do. But what is that?
Sure. So SSCI is the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which is essentially the boss of all intelligence industries. So when you go into that SCIF, that's where everything that's happened in every country, every terrorist attack, that's the briefing, that's the people you talk to and answer to. So naturally, they wanted to know the exact same thing.
Okay.
In those question lines. So you're following that good. And then AARO, of course, is the Pentagon's version of the investigative force that looks into, I don't even want to say UAP, but if it's in the air and it's unidentified, what is it?
Right. So again, you get this, you obtain this panel.
Correct.
Are you still in your mind thinking that I'm going, someone's going to be coming after me now?
Well,
Are you worried about that? When do you stop being worried about the response team?
here's kind of what my thinking was. If a response team shows up and they say, why did you pick that up? And I say, well, if I didn't, you have technology left in the middle of nowhere in a field. And at that point in time, I don't know if anybody else has seen it, right? I mean, I'm trying to monitor in my eyes, is anything flying over, not just surveillance, but normal, if a pilot goes over in a commercial and he sees something weird down there in the middle of a field too, he's probably going to call it into air traffic, right? I mean, there's all sorts of scenarios. So that was going to be my explanation.
So you were, and you're not lying. You're a patriot.
I'm glad you brought it to this point because I want people to understand at no point in time during this did I ever think to myself, this is going to be my business. I'm going to take this and have it analyzed. It was just working through a crime scene, right? If you show up and someone's in an accident, you just start getting them out of the car. I mean, it's just the process that seems like what you should be going through.
Right, as a good Samaritan.
Right.
You know, a
It
good
has nothing
citizen.
to do with me planning this or planning that. I am literally caught up in the moment of what's going on here.
Right.
So
Okay, so what happens next? You're clearly, smart enough to have picked this up. How long does from start to finish, how long is this encounter? And again,
yeah, so it's a long encounter because of how much we're sitting there, how many we're waiting, right? So we let 3 to 5 minutes go by because I think it's this close. So in 3 minutes, it should be over us. But someone else in the van, if you've ever tried to judge lights far off, right, it's not as easy. Okay, well, it's 5 minutes by now, and it should at least be, closer, brighter. So there's a lot of kill time there. But the actual out with it in person is right about 10 minutes time. We could throw 1,000 different times out there, but how much do you include? How much do you not? How much of that's really important? But that's kind of the essence of it.
but you had eyes on this thing for about 15 minutes.
Yeah, from first starting to make out the craft, because at that point in time before that, we're just seeing lights and there's
Okay.
no real detail of what it is.
Yeah, but all right, so you have a lot of data as well.
Correct.
You've obtained a lot of data on this thing
Correct.
in the air.
Correct.
It blimps off. You grab the panel. You're back in the vehicle, and you're headed off. What happens next?
Well, as all excitement comes down to when there's going to be some possible fallout, everybody wants to know who's going to be the point man, right? Things are going to happen. You're going to have to speak to somebody. Again,
So you're in the car talking about this
Right.
with the other three.
and it's not really like someone doesn't want involved in it. It's just like you get back in, and a lot of other people are like, yeah, man, I don't want to deal with, you just instantly start thinking the worst. Like, I don't want to deal with the FBI. I don't want to deal with them, man. Like, And I was like, I'll handle it. Right? Because you got to call somebody. It's just the way, again, we weren't thinking about let's have this and, these allegations against me. You're just thinking like, okay. So I don't do it when I get home. It's early hours of the morning. I was going to try and sleep. You can imagine, even with me, that you just can't. You can't sleep. You're replaying this in your mind. You're going through the data. At that point in time, I would say 3 of the 4 of us in the vehicle were convinced it's human tech. But because of what we've seen, there's still one that's like, not that it was a push of it's alien. It's just like I haven't seen enough to say it's human tech
But-
at this point.
But at this point, there is debate amongst your group that this might
Correct.
not be human.
Yeah, I mean, again, we look at stuff in fairness.
Wow.
And everybody's got different knowledge bases, So like,
This is amazing.
for example, when I went into AARO and they wanted to see photos, and this is exactly what they said, there's a certain way that everybody does stuff. So like, there's a certain way China or us or Russia nips and tucks their aircraft. You can still tell things from it. So some of the people that we have with us felt like that's definitely not just human, but U.S. tech. So it kind of depends on what you're looking for and what your markers are to get you to where you're at.
Right.
So
you take point. You take point.
Correct.
You go, guys.
I own the company, right? I'll
take
deal with it. Yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
handle it. What was your first move? Now that you had obtained, let's just say, because we'll just call it the material, right?
Yeah.
You've got the material. The next day, or when, what's the decision that you make first? Who do you call? Who are you calling?
My first thing was, did anybody else see this?
Oh,
Did anybody? Well, I'm thinking through it, right?
okay.
On the way home, the drive home, I was like, all right, I'll call the DOD tomorrow or the FBI. Then I get home and I was like, that doesn't necessarily seem like the greatest
idea.
I did. Did anybody else see this? So I was thinking to myself, well, the internet's undefeated, right? Started to kind of look around message boards, thinking to myself, surely this is going to be, someone's got to say something about it. And you're running search, for this word and that word, lights in the sky.
Kansas, lights in the
Right,
sky.
nothing.
Yeah.
So then I talked to another person who's kind of was involved within just the community and kind of like a morning show person that knew everything, got all the tips. And they're like, I haven't heard a thing about it. And then they actually had called the Air Force Base by there, and their Air Force Base, not that they would have told them, but was like, yeah, we don't know what you're talking about. So, in all actuality, I didn't want that answer. I was kind of like, shit, we're the only ones.
Right. So we're the only ones. Now we have a real duty.
Now I've got to make the call.
Yeah. Okay. And who do you call?
Well, so again,
Not Ghostbusters, right?
right. And this is the problem with movies. Believe it or not, there's no way to really talk to your government as a civilian. There's no magic phone number.
No, yeah, there's no there's no Superman phone, right? Oh no,
There's
the
not.
bat phone. Where you call in, yeah.
Correct. And even if you look through your intelligence agencies right now, they all have an 800 number. You can't call your local office, your local headquarters or regional office. So I try the DOD a little bit. They have no idea what how to help me, and that's an essence of when I called the FBI, because keep in mind there's different.
I'm sorry, the Department of Defense can't help.
Here's why. And it's relayed when I spoke to the FBI.
Well, it's now the DOW, but
right.
Then it was the Department
Correct.
of Defense.
Here's what I'm saying, and you be the FBI here.
Okay.
I'm in Kansas. It's early hours of the morning. I've essentially seen a UFO. Okay. Here's what you do. Click. That's what it gets to. Sir, I can't help you. Sir, I don't. Okay.
Yep.
That's it. Now, at that point in time, I hadn't said anything about pieces or whatnot, because you're just trying to get this conversation started. You're trying to have them take you serious. And at that point in time, no matter what I would have yelled out, it would have been like yelling out, I've been abducted. You could tell they were just like,
over it.
You're a crazy guy at 3 a.m.
I don't think
Scenic
I
crafts.
asked. What year is this?
I always say early 2000s. And the reason
So
this first happening, yeah.
Early 2000s?
Correct. And the reason...
So the stigma is so big right then.
Yeah, can you imagine?
They're not even remotely entertaining it.
No one's heard of any AARO. Burleson is still probably... It may have even been before he was in the Missouri, State House. Like, this is before everybody's come out and started to make this a word.
This is... So, one question.
Yeah.
Before or after 9/11?
I don't date it with that, but what I do say is it was before the Nimitz encounter.
Okay. Before.
I want people to understand the reason why for this. And if everybody listens to, like, whether it be Tim Phillips or Sean Kirkpatrick talk, it's always, let's get those guys. And I'm not saying there's not a reason for it, right? I've got my own part of that. But there's certain things they say that people don't realize what they're saying. And one of them is they'll say, for those of you that haven't come out to the public eye, we thank you. And a lot of people jump on that and say, oh, they don't want them telling us, the public, what's going on. But the reason is, in real reality of how these things work, is the first step of any radar system, of any discovery, is an algorithm. So if I know every single one of these dates of when something was in the air and the date and time and location, I can see what's in the sky for satellites, communication links. I can start figuring out information you do not want the enemies to have. And as we sit here right now, the Nimitz is so publicized, they've got one point that's in every algorithm. We don't want to give them conditional points to figure out how's this thing fly. I mean, this is how you break stuff down. It's the same thing we did. So that's the reason for not giving everybody an exact date and time.
Okay, fair. Yeah, fair. So before the Nimitz. That actually, I did not. That fact must have escaped me. I was thinking like 2015. So no, but the stigma. So the stigma is real still.
It's not even a stigma at that point in time, with people that are within our team and the jobs that they have, and God bless Kansas, but it's a little bit behind the progressive movements of anything. If you
Down
say
there
you're
in the
seeing,
Bible
if
Belt,
you
right?
start saying you're seeing UFOs, you're probably losing your job or questions. Okay, so you would never.
Your credibility is fractured.
It's gone. Yeah.
So, but to like in context of calling like federal agencies, they're also still at this time.
Yeah.
They're still denying that they're investigating, that they take it seriously, and publicly facing. They have nothing to do. They literally refer you to MUFON.
That's what they did, basically. They didn't say MUFON.
Did they refer you to
not to MUFON by name, but it was
UFO?
like basically go talk to the other crazy people guy, right? We got you got me on the phone for 10 minutes. I can't help you.
Even though you said you had material.
Not at that point in time, because it never got to that. We're trying to work it through, because I don't want to just blurt out, "Oh, I got material." I want to let them know we picked it up for this reason, right? We have it. You want to
You
work
want to set
through
that
it.
stage.
Right?
So you're not opening with, "Hey, I have material."
Correct. But again, you could just tell it was of no interest. They just viewed me as a crazy guy. Now, the FBI is going to come up several times in this story, and it's interesting to see how that went 360 towards the end. But that was my start of the FBI. I was getting hung up on.
Okay. So before we go to the break, and then because when we get back, we're gonna get real deep into this. But when is it that you go, okay, if no one's gonna take me seriously, I might as well get this. I might as well use this to my benefit to some degree.
It's after those calls. I made a couple other calls, because legitly I'm trying to get someone on the phone at some military branch or whatnot that will have an actual conversation, a serious conversation, and nobody wants to talk to a UFO person. So we get through all of that, and we've got several acknowledgments. I always keep my receipts of basically like, well, it's not ours, not in the sense of like we're revealing information to you, but like, you call the Air Force Base and they're like, well, I know what to tell you, guy, but it's not ours, right? So it's like, okay, nobody's claiming it. Nobody wants to have a serious talk. Let's start looking at what we actually have.
Right.
Because as you'll see, as this moves forward and I start releasing more stuff, when I started to bring in information, that's what caught people's attention. So this is the pinnacle, the genesis block of like, well, let's just start going at it like we would. Not a full-blown company. We didn't open a headquarters. We didn't register. My companies are all registered in, Wyoming, so it's an anonymous LLC. None of that. It's just us saying, let's get the information on it, go back again to them, present it, and then hopefully we get to the person that says, oh, shit, these guys were telling the truth. Yeah.
We should have taken them seriously.
Let's get them on the phone to the right people.
Because ultimately, again, you want to, like, this is what you do. You want that collaborative effort.
Look at AARO, right? If you go in with the story, they can say whatever they want.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You go in with evidence, it's a different conversation. So even at the lowest level of over the phone, if you can't go in and say, well, can you have someone visit me, or can I go on and, speak to you and I'll bring my information, you have a story that they consider a nothing burger.
Right. Right.
So that's where it started.
Now, did who analyze? So when you start analyzing this, how do you go about that? Are you contacting certain labs? Are you going to universities? Or are you working with MUFON, or what's?
No, not there. Again, this is because there was one person that wasn't convinced of what it was. And in fairness, we did have a particular member look at, you cover this alien sort of what ifs, and we'll just start looking at hard science. So my team was not that. My team's the hard science team,
Okay.
right? So some things you can do yourself. Other things like an actual analysis of a piece of craft, that's a good one, is beyond a person's capabilities for what you would spend on what you would need to do that. So that was sent off. That's on record at SSCI. That's on record at AARO.
Okay.
This has all been said. So none of this may be new to everybody listening to this, but again, I have never tried to keep secrets from the government in some sort of conspiratorial way.
Right. You've consistently showed the want to do the right thing. It's the non-acknowledgement and the almost reverse kind of like discrediting, like saying like,
It's, well, there's two discreditings. There's the discrediting when you think I don't have to deal with this person, and then when we drop the fucking hammer, then it's the discrediting of I don't want anybody listening to this guy, and it's the absolute panic of, oh shit,
right.
he's got everything he needs.
Right. So what happens with the hard science? You don't have to, again, I will cut things out if needed.
Yeah, if anything I say in all my interviews, I always tell people, just, so people understand, because you're obviously a friendly guy, but also a journalist. Like, I've kind of always encouraged people, if you got a question, ask me, especially if it's a hard question. I'm not here for any sort of, gimme. So if people pick up on that, that's what I've preferred, how this goes. So the hard science is, you start also answering your questions just like a thesis. And what it was is, why would this be here? That's, of all the questions, believe it or not, that's actually the number one question, because that's also, is this a route? Is this a known route? Is this how it travels? And this was also part of, what the other team was doing, looking at, we need to know why it's here in Kansas. So we started thinking, okay, we've got people with us that are radar people. The first step of, radar, like I said, is the algorithm. So
Right.
What we needed to see is, will lightning strike twice, right? If we don't get a hit on it here, that probably could have been the end of everything other than our piece. If we can get a hit on it here, now you start building, what particular GPS satellites are, you start forming all that I was saying we got to be worried about releasing. So we had the piece, which means, we had to analyze, we had a lot of data, so we know what the signatures are going to be of this. We're still in the infancy, so we don't just have massive, arrays of things we can put out. So in that sense, we joked about Ghostbusters, but that's kind of what the original, it was like a Ghostbuster car of trying to run it down in that same particular area. So
you went looking for it.
Yeah, knowing what it should. We had some benefits because, you got to be careful what you say, because you can receive signal, but when you start sending signals, there's a lot of license and whatnot you have to have. So when I skip over things, it's intentional.
Fair.
But if hypothetically you knew what the signature was, you can get pretty high in the sky to try and identify that same signature. So
Right.
it's not that we're waiting for another downed craft floating off the ground. We're just trying to see, does it cross this path again?
Right. Is this repeatable? Is this something that
Is this
the
the flight
known
path?
flight path for
Right.
this thing?
And for people that don't know, that's still common stuff. Like, you have flight paths for a reason. And
Yeah.
going over Kansas is a damn good reason, right? Who's really going to see you outside? And these are the reasons why you pick paths, especially with test aircraft or X-planes. So
Right. And again, middle of the night, right? What hour is this? From the original?
when this whole thing went down, it's about a 3 a.m. time
That's
frame.
exactly when I would do it if I was.
Right.
Most people are asleep. If not, they're hammered. If they're up at 3 a.m., there's a chance that
That's it.
Again, you start limiting.
Your story's just been doubted because you're a person up at 3 a.m. and what are most people at 3 a.m. are coming up from the bar. So
Yeah.
again, it doesn't. You just have a story without data.
Yeah, and it's that would be my time. So again, you're
Well,
seeing all these things.
I try and give people a reference of how this really works, because my mind and my experience is in that industry. And for anyone that follows like the war zone, I don't agree with everything, but he'll do some real world stuff. And one of them is there's an actual team that will go out, I believe it's the Night Stalkers, and train in urban environments where people are at unannounced. And the particular story he covered was he got pictures back of basically people in all black rappelling down from Nighthawks. I believe it was in Miami or something like that. So he immediately thought this is a fake nonsense story. But when he started checking into it, they verified, yeah, that's how they train. So they're simulating sneaking into a city or a building,
Undetected.
real fucking world, that they're going to have to do in another country to see how it goes. So again, for people that say, oh, no one would do that, this is exactly how they do stuff for obvious reasons. Now, them hitting some sort of problem in the craft being where it was at is an unfortunate, unintended thing for them, but this is how you test stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Now, with that being said, one more thing before we hit the break. In the time that you're getting hung up on by the 3-letter agencies, alphabet agencies, and I know you say you're on the hard science, but are you starting to develop more of an interest in UAP? Are you starting to look into certain cases to see if you can find any similarities? Like, has that come up yet? I know it's come up. You have a
Right.
person, but
So-
are you starting to dive down that hole?
Well, keep in mind when I say I'm certain it's human tech, maybe 99.9%. But as anyone should be, never go to 100. I know I say 100 because it's so close to it, but you always have to be willing to be wrong, an open mind. The individual that we brought in for this, what I'm referring to as the alien UFO side, is a person that we see a lot of times. They're not in the community, but like in the community, who could tell you cases that even some of the most studied people don't know or don't remember. Like that sort of level of, like just what I've told you something, and you say, oh, well, are you familiar with this because this happened in those archives. It's that same sort of thing. So that was kind of the level of person we brought in of could tell us anything. And what I looked at went back to look at the old fire in the sky, and it wasn't that I wanted to go and disprove it. It was just that's how it happened.
So that's why you're going back and looking at these
Correct.
cases.
Correct.
Oh.
And then another one that came up was the Philadelphia experiment, because although I can't say a lot about it today, as we're relaying, how things work and what we've got on data, the person was like, oh, just like you kind of do. It's like, oh, well, that reminds me of the Philadelphia experiment. So it's like, well, we better look at
What this was.
that. I mean, we couldn't look at everything, right? I mean, that's, but you're trying to pick out the best ones, whether it be the most talked about, like the school case, or ones that this person's saying that fits kind of what you're telling me.
Right.
man.
Yeah. Wow. With the Philadelphia experiment, what did you, how did you even approach that? It's a wild story,
It's a wild
but
story.
it's a story nonetheless.
And
Do you believe that we may have something, like we know MK Ultra and things like that did happen, right? We know that
government's
there
shady
is,
and keeping
yeah.
secrets, for sure.
Right.
And I've dealt with that a lot. It's where, as this has progressed, because of knowing what I know now, the sort of stuff you have to go into SCIFs about, not one time, they go and verify it, call you back again over years, right? It's that I kind of had to let go of the hunt of where did this come from, because that's the big thing. Did we develop this ourselves, or is this from a craft that we've recovered or re-engineered? And the way I had to do that is I'll never know. I've got access to running things down and getting data right now. I don't have access, as people's finding out for their own selves, of pulling files from the military government. Like, how are you ever going to get into these files? You would have to know to see that, which is kind of what brought me here, which is that Gene Sticko and his book was just another guy to me on internet. Look through it, and there are
I'm sorry, who?
Gene Sticko
I know.
picked at me a little bit because there are some things in those papers that pique my interest. Now, again, I'll say if, but you start looking at stuff and it's you say if there was ever a path, look here. So I reached out to him, spoke to him a little bit more.
Do you think there's something to it?
Well, here's what I'll say. If this truly was re-engineered, people have to understand re-engineering is not what it sounds like. First of all, it's damn near impossible. And the product you get out at the end of it is not going to be as good as, think about when China steals our stealth or things. Yeah, it may look exactly the same, but the coating's not there. I mean, there's just certain things you can't get. So
shortcuts taken, and yeah.
You're guessing. You're still guessing a lot. So with that said, it would also have to go through a very long timeline.
But that's also why panels could be falling off.
True. So my view of that book and the information in that book is if there really was a program in those
the Soviet
dates,
era,
and you have to think, is anything like TVs or anything, is it still the same as the Soviet area as it is now? No. So what I'm looking at is the 2000, because it's 26 right now version, or early 2000s. That would be what it would look like probably in the infancy of re-engineering this, which is what it covers. So that's kind of, there's got to be something that piques my interest. Like when I look through all those cases and I said it's bullshit, well, most of it's stories, most of it's claims. Here's some actual data that does have some things that match up.
I have a question. Are there any, and maybe even Gene can pop in here, because are there any nuclear equipped military bases in the area that you were?
So the short answer is no on nuclear, but it depends on, throughout our process of tracking these and running them down. Yeah, but does that mean we'll just say 50%? Not that that's accurate, but we'll say, what do you look at? Is the glass half full or empty on, if that has something to do with it? Because just like you can find one that is close, then there's another one that's not. So I think it has more to do with when people see stuff, like you analyze, what is this by? And if it just happens to be the majority is by, something that's nuclear, now we say, oh, it's got to be close to, it has an interest in nuclear. And that may not be accurate.
Yeah, right. And, so, I mean, because that area is hard. It's like you said, it's all
You're in no man's land.
You're in no man's land.
It really does fit more with the narrative of if you didn't want anybody to see it, anybody go through, one of the things.
But you said like places like Lockheed, and they all have places around there.
Yeah, everybody builds there. Not necessarily like a skunk works, but everybody's general aviation, military jets, and then you still have to build your secret stuff somewhere. A lot of spy planes come out of that area. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. They don't sit out at the fences like they do at Area 51, but I'm telling you, just from working that area, they should.
Right.
There's a lot of shit, because if you want to fly someone out without someone noticing that you've just built, that's the place.
That's the place to do it.
That'd be a place to do it, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's take our break right here. We have to play the ads, unfortunately, to keep the show free. But no, I love the company that I've been partnering with, Good Feels, because I'm not a drinker, and they're great. But we'll take a break here. Let everyone go to the bathroom. Reset, and then when we get back, I'd like to talk about some of so when you came out to AARO, I want to start talking about the post 2017.
Yeah,
era.
that's a good place and why everybody knows who I am, but they're so confused. We got to straighten some things out.
Yeah, we'll skip over because, it was the time before, right, where they're kind of still hanging up the phone. But the New York Times article happens, the modern disclosure movement starts happening. I'm assuming that's when you go back and you go, hey,
It's kind of like here's the exact parlay into it. We're starting to work the company. We're realizing we can do things no one else can do, and we're still trying to like help out and be like, that thing you think's not trackable. Guess what? It is, and we'll help you because at that point in time, we're starting to get money into it, and then it ends up where I get investigated by AFOSI and CIS, even as a civilian.
and you start getting threats.
And then it ended up because of jurisdiction, and in person, they made me fucking go in with the Department of Justice and the FBI office and all the, suits of attorney generals and fucking talk to them.
Really?
And that's when the FBI said that they accused me of blackmailing the United States government. And keep in mind, he didn't say me the whole fucking time. He could have said this, early. I mean, I was in there for a couple hours. He was like, based on everything I've heard, you haven't committed any crimes. You do have a right to have a business and a product and sell that to the United States government, even if they don't like what your capabilities are. And basically, because of that, I was like, oh, fuck, I can get out of here. Like, hey, basically, you still got to follow rules. Like, do you know what ITAR is? And he started telling me, like, you're going to have to go through that. And then as I'm leaving, he was like, because we're going to be watching.
This episode of Total Disclosure is brought to you by Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. And I'll be honest, this is one of my favorite partners that we've ever had on the show. As I given up alcohol, I'm very open about this on the show, and I think a lot more people choosing that same path. So if you're looking for something that can truly replace alcohol in any setting, whether you're unwinding after a long day of research, hosting friends, or just want to stay clear-headed and in control, Good Feels delivers a completely different kind of experience. It starts with their 12-ounce stubby bottles of cannabis-infused seltzers. They're crisp, clean, zero sugar, and 0 calories. And they're designed to give you a smooth, fast-acting, elevated feeling without the crash, without the hangover, and without the downsides of alcohol. And if you're more than an at-home mixologist, Good Feels also has fast-acting beverage enhancers. You can add them to literally anything. Sparkling water, mocktails, whatever you like, and create your own customized experience. This isn't about checking out, it's about tuning in, staying present, and upgrading the way that you kick back and relax. And right now, listeners of Total Disclosure get 20% off their order. That's getgoodfeels.com for 20% off exclusive to this audience. Good Feels Cannabis Seltzers. Replace the alcohol, keep the experience, stay in control. And we're back. So we set the stage before the break, and the first thing I really want to ask about is that you've said OSI verified death threats and adversary financial offers. Can you walk us through the first time that you felt your life was in danger?
It never comes with a death threat to start. So how they start is financial offers, investments into companies, which is all normal protocol, we all quickly learn. So when you start getting people approaching you because they have to find a way to get to you, but there really shouldn't be one, then some red flags go up. And then when you find out they want to invest, red flags. So it starts very mundane. Now, as things progress and you realize exactly what's going on, so you say no, then it becomes where they essentially go to the next step. And the next step of death threats happens to do with they're following you around. You have a tail. When I used to go back and forth to the SCIF and the Hart building, the SSCI SCIF, I used to tell those guys, this is the most half-assed setup I've ever seen, right? I walk in 2 doors, you don't have to have any ID. Then you go to security. The security is a booth setup with like a 5-layer ceiling. You can see right over, right past it, right through it. You go through the metal detector, which is all it is, and the x-ray. and then you're in. So the SSCI SCIF is right there on the second floor. It's not a secret. And you can sit there and watch who goes in, who comes out. They even publicize when their weekly meetings are on Tuesdays and what time it is. There goes Rubio, there goes Warner, right? It's ridiculous. So part of that is, what would you think then state actors would do on a daily basis? Keep an eye on who's going in and out, because you can hang out in that building all the time. Someone goes into that SCIF, it's something big. You don't get into that SCIF if it's not major national security. So, moving forward on this multi-layer, they're chasing me around because they've come up with who I am name-wise from some other activities that went on, which I'm not going to release today, of who I am, and then just kind of this process. They've obviously got someone watching the SCIF at the other side, and these things start to work out to where they start to figure out essentially that I'm ratting them out. I'm going into SSCI like with the Langley, and I'm telling them who's doing what and what's in the sky. And they're getting pretty pissed. So now not only have I not took the financial offer for them to grab my tech, I'm using it against them. And at that point in time, it progresses into death threats.
Right. And how did that come?
They come usually over the phone. And they've got your phone number. They tell you, we've got your phone number. We can track you by your phone number. And they start making the threats. I was just speaking with Gene about it. This is kind of the industry he's from, but they tell you can't handle the consequences. They can tell you they're going to find you by your phone. This is just more pressure to get you
So it's
to crack.
veiled.
It's veiled, but it's always clear at the end, because at the end they tell you, we're going to wipe you off the face of the earth. They tell you what sort of horrible things they're going to do to you and your family. There's no beating around the bush.
Do you think that there's a possibility that when people talk about the men in black, this is a big thing in the UFO community, do you think that this is some sort of like deep state arm that comes out to shake people
I can tell you
that
that
get too close to this?
one of the things one of the questions that was asked to me by a senator was, let me kind of shape this a little bit. So we're sitting there talking, and all these various death threats and everything. Again, this has all been turned over. AARO's got it, SSCI's got it. When it comes in, that's what I do, right? I'm following the rules, I'm following the laws. I've got a DOD Dropbox for AARO, a sensitive Dropbox, all these things. Senator has two piles, and one pile has these death threats from China and others that came with some pretty intense verification that they are who they say they are, and they're at the level where they can pull this off. And then there's another pile, and I kind of thought, why would you separate these? Just, my analytical mind. And he puts his finger on it, and he says, do you ever think our own United States government might be sending you offers or death threats just to see if you'd go for it? Into that conversation. I hadn't considered that before, because when I get something, I just turn it in. But when I stopped and thought about it, it's not a verification of men in black and that sort of story, but our government, as we know, when they want to keep a secret, they'll gladly pin something on you or put you in a bad spot. So it's not a men in black, but there may be worse things out there than the men in black showing up at your door.
Right. Wow. That must be, it starts to make a lot more sense on why and I kind of respect it in a way that you're not willing to let them win easy. You're just not. And I there's something about it that I respect, and thank you, because I think people like you bring legitimacy. So it must have been really disheartening, with hindsight on just myself, watching Tim Phillips of AARO say these kind of things about you. Or imply them.
Yeah, he flat out said them. It was for a reason. And for anyone that needs to find the reason, you go back and you watch that interview, And the question that's actually asked to him is, they're talking about the UAP caucus, and has nothing to do with the Senate, has nothing to do with witnesses, nothing. And then the question is, what was it like essentially to work with members of that, caucus? And he does this weird kind of thing where he's moving his body and he's somehow formulates an answer that has nothing to fucking do with the question. So in my mind, that's pre-planned, but he was just trying everything he could to find the place to get it in there.
Drop it in.
Drop it in there, because when he dropped it in there, he fucking came with everything he had. So the statement of, we believe one witness was trying to extort AARO and the government, and then going into how he wasn't a medical professional, but based on what he was told, he wouldn't want me around his family, and then further dictating that supposedly it was handed off to the FBI to look at me. What that actually achieved was, number one, a hit on my business. So now I run a business that's trying to extort the United States government. People don't understand how close I got over years of dealing with these people. We'd go to the pub when I was in DC and we'd have drinks or food a lot of times when I'm in town. We know about each other's families, right? Because I've got security issues. They're coaching me through it. They knew how involved I was, all my kids' activities. I mean, like, me and my wife win awards for, volunteering at the school and stuff. And so, like, everybody knew how wrapped up I am with family life. So then what do you think he went for?
Business and family.
Business and family. And the family that I wasn't safe. This is coming from a guy who, although he was on the deferred retirement, was still on a paycheck. He hadn't retired yet. He's still getting a paycheck.
No, they just asked him to sit it out. Sit the rest out.
Correct. So he's still a government employee, came out and said that I wasn't safe to have around one's family. Now, if my name comes out, what do you think every parent of every one of my kids' friends, do you think that school would ever let me back in there? It will be a massive story on, you have this madman that he's framed me as. So he's trying to basically say, shut the fuck up. Don't come out talking, because if you do and your identity's out, you're ruined.
We're gonna bury you.
You're ruined. Your everything, your personal life and your
We
business
may
life
not
ruined.
be able to kill you outright, but you might as well be.
Time to shut up.
You'll want to be dead by the time we're done with you.
Well, the way that I found out about what he did on that podcast was my phone started going crazy, going off. It was blowing up. And I was like, let me check it. And again, I'm not going to say the names of people who still have my back that I've worked through with these various, committees and branches. But that's who it was. And the exact statement essentially was, you've been marked for death, man. Like, you're in trouble. And I was like, the hell are you talking about? I just checking my phone here.
Right. This has to be.
As they work through it, it makes perfect sense. So right now, some of the stuff Tim Phillips forgot to remember in that statement was that you have verified death threats against you from countries. Now, Tim Phillips has just went on what will be viewed by everybody, because national, state actors, anyone that's former this or that, especially an SCIFs, like he said, serves at the pleasure of the president. They watch everything you do to see if there's any hints. He's just went on essentially and said that the guy that they know that they're tracking me, so they know me in that way, has physical material in pieces. And he verified it when Mick West said it. So when I got the message from these guys, they were like, you got to watch out for fucking home invasion, kidnapping. Nothing's off the fucking thing. You have material pieces of a technology that's going to rule the fucking world. And it's just been announced you have them on your possession. You're fucked.
This must have been the day
Yeah,
that you're...
Think about what a country would do and what they do to steal our technology. The sort of levels of thousands of people that end up getting caught, going to jail, the money they spend. Now you're saying, hey, that guy, if you can track him down in his fucking house, which is what they were trying to say, has the technology.
He's got something in his home.
It's the easiest path to the greatest creation in the world. You just got to get him.
And if people want to not take what you just said seriously, I implore you to look around at the missing scientists, the missing generals, the dead people, all seemingly connected with aerospace, nuclear, and, engineering capability. So this is real. Like, I can't stress that enough. And it is becoming clear that there is some sort of civil war happening behind the scenes in government and military industrial complex where some people want this out there, right? They want to start advancing it because clearly it's not working in a silo. But then there's the other half that's like, over my dead body.
Correct. And just, my personal thoughts on this, just like we looked at different things, and maybe it's this, maybe it's not that. With a lot of people, I agree the list is probably too extensive on there. But what I will also stress is this stuff really does happen. I can't say it happened to these people, but individuals don't understand the sort of pressure they put on you when you have, and they've found you for technology to either take a deal, steal it, whatever the fuck they got to do. The amount of offers I've had from pretty women to take an all expense paid trip to China, which is going to be a one-way ticket. I mean, they hit you with every fucking thing they have. So I don't know if this happened to these people, but this is a real current in the process going through.
I mean, do we need to look at like the Epstein stuff for further proof of? I mean, this is the world. I think people.
It's dirty.
It's dirty. Yeah. It is dirty. Do you think that? I guess I don't want to get too speculative with this, but let's play a hypothetical out.
Sure.
Just because I want people to hear it. Pretty girl asks you to go to China, all expenses paid. You get there. What happens? What do you?
Correct. So obviously it depends on the situation, but it's very easy for them to get you over and take money, take what you want. I mean, there's always a progression into it. For me personally, there's no pretty girl there, right? It's a one-way ticket. But the offers that I got, and this has all been reported, I mean, again, everything I got, I turned in. There's no secrets. You get a random, oh, sorry, wrong number thing, and then talking, and then the picture of it, and then it's like, well, I live in here, I live there. Oh, really? This happened to live in D.C. when you just happen to be going to D.C.? That way you want to get a drink, right? Then it progresses into like, do you know about China? Like, do you like China? So then if you say no, and I don't have anything against Chinese people, Asia, plenty of friends, by all means. But when you're talking to a fucking spy, you're a little nastier, so you can play that angle or you can play the other angle. But what essentially the alphabet agencies were telling me is like, you got to have more than just a text. You got to get some sort of location from them. You got to get some sort of phone number, something we can exploit to catch them, right? So this is why you got to talk a little bit and get some information. So then they've got a place you can stay while you're up there in DC. Well, guess where that information went? Right over to the fucking authorities, right? Because now you've got a location. So that's the process of it. I mean, I've been married for a long time.
But they're trying to get you to trip.
It's the normal trips, even for people who are married. The old pretty lady scheme, the honey traps, the honey pots, right?
The red sparrow,
This stuff works, and
because men all tend, they're what they're leveraging is they're leveraging the. I mean, again, this is a society that allows like OnlyFans to exist, right?
Yeah.
And the Epstein stuff, and we can go down. We don't have to go down that road, but it's just an example of like, this is the real world, whether you guys want to see it or not. This stuff happens. So moving on.
The greatest control is to be able to blackmail somebody, and everything you mentioned there, whether it be Epstein or the honeypot trap, at the end, that's what it comes down to. They got a secret.
They want what you have, and they'll do anything to have that leverage over you.
Correct.
You only have the option of giving it up.
You have to agree to
playing
them,
by their
or
rules.
or they're gonna send honeypot pictures to your wife. That's the sort of shit that
The blackmail.
right, that's where it comes from.
So, what you had mentioned something to me about Admiral Tim Gaudet. I don't know. I'm sure you saw the recent clip.
I
of
did
him
the
and-
battle back and forth a bit
Mc-
like I've had. Yeah.
Do you know what that tells me? It tells me that they are willing to lie through their teeth, just right at you. Like Kirkpatrick, the man who ran AARO, is willing to just boldly lie, even though it was very verifiable that he was lying. But he's just willing to do it. And he's sipping his coffee and he's acting like this is no big thing. Like that guy is Dr. Evil.
Well, his own nickname, self-proclaimed nickname's Dr. Evil. What I will say about that is there are certain rules that are supposed to be followed, and one of them is, especially within the IC and just what I'm into now, is you don't put someone else's name out there unless there's a reason. So when Tim Phillips, essentially led everybody to it's me, there's a reason. Kirkpatrick, whether you like him or not, has never burn-nosed my ass, right? So I stay away out of, it's kind of the mutual respect. It's not a fear of saying something. It's like there's no good to come from having a verbal battle. I think Tim Phillips has realized that now because I didn't back down. And there's no clearer example than what you just mentioned, because what we have on record now is that Tim Gallaudet, Tim Phillips, and Kirkpatrick all only agree on one thing. Everybody's focused on whose story's real. What do they agree on? It happened at AARO. Kirkpatrick's version, his office. Phillips' version, his office, but also Kirkpatrick's office. Gallaudet, it happened at AARO. Okay, so we got that. These are their words, not mine, right? Because I've had to sign paperwork that I can't say certain things. So, what happens over the battle? There's a reason why Sue Goff is involved in keeping stories straight. Well, whether it was intentional, because remember you read a little bit of his statement. He says, "This is from my unclassified, essentially public record." And I thought that was odd. And then he puts up a screenshot. What's on the screenshot? His meeting at AARO. I'm using other people's words here.
Of course, yeah.
What has been said by both Phillips and Kirkpatrick: we don't release the location of the AARO office because we don't want people to know where it's at. What's on that fucking thing, the Gallaudet?
The location of
the goddamn
AARO.
address.
Down to the suite.
So there's no fucking good from getting into these verbal battles. So what that tells me is how shitty AARO really is being ran, because these guys are supposed to be professionals. They should fucking know this is what's going to happen. There's always going to be a casualty. There's always going to be damage. So,
do you think AARO is fit for the job at hand?
AARO is being assigned a job they don't want versus are they fit. So analyzing things that don't have a UAP or orbs attached to them, they're probably pretty good at it with the experts that they have. What is this? Is it a Chinese this? Is it this? But they don't want the job of UAP. Even me, I'm willing to still say we tried to analyze as best as we could. We still kept somewhat of an open mind, but followed the evidence. For them, it's definitely a no as it comes in. So with that, I can't say they're good for the job because they won't give it an honest look.
I found out today. So I recently interviewed a Connecticut state legislator, Joe Hoxa, and I woke up to a text today that said that because he had entered a bill for Connecticut.
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Yeah, for the state to study UAP. And they were going to stand up an investigation that included, professor at university and all that. It went into appropriations, right? Meaning the money was going to go there no matter what. Like it was already pretty much greenlit. At the last minute, they went and the money's still being allocated for a UAP study, but now it's going to be done by AI because they don't want to actually hire anyone human, and they went with the Democratic candidates version of the program. So they last minute redrew up an alternate plan that included only an AI investigation. So it's just like, yeah, what are we doing here, guys?
Well,
like, what are we doing?
Just so I'm clear on this, and I mean, again, this isn't about me telling the story. There's a reason why these have been admitted by multiple politicians, the Pentagon. You have someone in more than once in a SCIF with sitting senators who are on committees that can verify everything you say while you're there. They send someone out the door to verify it. Because unbeknownst to some podcasters, you can't have electronics inside of a SCIF.
No, so for anyone who doesn't know, it's essentially a Faraday cage, right?
You're locked in a bank vault.
Yep, essentially.
So if you say this was there at this GPS, and they go and they call NGA or whoever the hell they need to call, and they get an answer back, and they come and give you a nod, yeah or no. And you don't get multiple meetings over years unless you're getting all yes.
Right.
So with that said, I say this in certainty, as much as I like what they're doing, a college or institution will never fucking solve this or find it in the sky, because you don't have what you need. Not just funding, the knowledge. You don't know what you're looking for.
I agree, but the point being is, you can control artificial intelligence. You can't necessarily control, you don't always have control over human, right? So, if they were to find anything, now it's an AI, and, they write the code that does this.
Yeah, I mean, my point I'm trying to hammer down is it's the same way as the Galileo project. It's not going to fucking find anything. I'm telling you now.
This is the program by Avi Loeb.
Right.
Yeah.
None of this shit's going to find anything. By all means, I'm the only one that's got the track record, can bring it in. And none of that stuff works. So what I'm trying to tell people is not brag about myself. I'm trying to say what you do is very important. And when you instantly do something that's not going to work, and it doesn't mean because it's not with good intentions, right? Like, I love, I've saw the interview. He's got all good intentions, but he doesn't, how would you know the answers of how to set this up? It's bad in the end, because now what you have is another state's going to say, well, I know the one up in Connecticut spent this much money and didn't find it. And so that's where I'm trying to angle people into, like, where you put your money and who you put your backing to in this community does have an effect.
Okay, fair enough. And that's fair. You're fighting the Invention Secrecy Act, which you had mentioned before. And you claim that you're winning, I would assume.
Yeah, if I was losing, I wouldn't be here, because you can't say anything.
What does that battle look like right now?
Yeah, again, we're exposing secrets, not just military, technological secrets, but how the government really operates. When I got out of the FBI office, they mentioned ITAR, right? Because I've had to go through all this. So
what is ITAR for anyone who doesn't?
ITAR is International Traffic of Arms Regulations to the Department of State. And basically what it has to do with is any technology they determine they should control, which, by the way, it's a massive umbrella. It's not just stealth planes. You could be talking about anything, right? At one point in time, they even try to regulate gunsmiths.
But the Invention Secrecy Act, again, was put in as a clampdown on...
It's the other part of the box. The first part of the box is ITAR, because ITAR is separate. But what ITAR says is you have to turn in the schematics, basically, and the information about it. They want to essentially know everything, how it's made, what it can do, and then they look at it and they determine what else could it do, not even just what you're pointing out. And then they regulate who you can talk to. Every marketing material that you're going to have to sell this has to be approved. Every person you want to talk to has to be approved. If you sell it, it has to be approved. So they control everything. There's no court system to go to. So if I want to sell something, or I want to talk to somebody in another country,
it all has to be pre-approved.
Has to be approved. And ITAR, although we didn't go through with the application because they were really honest, like wanting to know how to make it, and it's like, we're not going to we're not going to go through approval if we have to tell you how to make it. Like, that's just another screw job of, more requests for more information, requests for information. It's a disaster. So if you violate that, and they can also just tell you violated it, you don't have to have approval. You're talking about millions per fine, federal pen time. I mean, it's fucking
Again,
come down on you. So the other side of that is you say, okay, let me patent this. You go through the U.S. Patent Office. It's the same thing with the Patent Office. For people that don't know, if you are a U.S. citizen, you have to go through the Patent Office. It doesn't matter if you're in another country. It doesn't matter if you paid for everything yourself. It doesn't matter if you only clean the floors where it was made. By law, you have to go through the U.S. Patent Office first. Mm-hmm. They look at it, Department of Energy, Department of Defense/War, even the, Commerce basically looks at it and says, will this throw the U.S. financial system to a mess? Does this mess us up on defense and military and so on? If they determine that, then they have the ability to implement the Invention Secrecy Act, which means you have a patent, but it's theirs. It's not yours until they release it. And why they have it, you cannot speak about it. That means to the public, that means you couldn't do a podcast like this and talk about the invention or how you're getting screwed. You can't even tell your own spouse. If you do, this is going to sound familiar, federal pen time and millions in fines. That's the fucking box. So now, who do you sell it to? You're stuck, and the only fucking customer
is the U.S. government.
Is the U.S. government.
They get a straight, and I believe, I probably don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but a lot of energy related, like propulsion, like that stuff, anything energy related, and like hard material science advancement are often kept at bay using these methods.
Yeah, I mean, I have some ideas of some of the numbers, and what people need to know is it's growing. So this is being not just
advancements being hindered.
It's growing. So
to benefit.
They figured out what to use, and they're making damn good effort of more and more and more people's patents. And so, what I want to really hit home with people on this is they've also figured out tricks. You say, well, take him to court. By law, kind of like the eminent domain says, everybody's jumping on, they have to pay you a reasonable value. Well, there's been court cases. No lawyer will even take him, because when you get into the court cases on record, what happens is the Department of Defense and the Department of War says, yes, we use that person's device that could defeat this, defeat that, and it's all correct. And they say, well, why didn't you negotiate a price? And what they say is because the price and the amount we use is classified, which is a legal loophole. So there's no mathematical equation to be paid, and there's no minimum to be paid. So what you get is zero, because for them, it's classified what they would need to pay you, and that's been accepted across every fucking court that it's come through.
How do we advance as a society when advancement is compartmentalized?
Well, that's again, we're talking about half problems and whole problems. So that's the beginning of it. The other part of it is every single person on Senate Armed Services Committee and the House, HIPC, just like SSCI, they know damn well what the Invention Secrecy Act is. You go to their own personal YouTubes, you can do it right now. Listen to them speak. They've got on a suit, American flag pin, just talking non-stop about authoritarian governments that, steal from their people and keep them, in the poor. And it's like, if I was to ask you here today, you tell me what country this is, and I'll tell you what happens. They take what you have that's from your money, and they threaten you with jail time and millions in fines to ruin you. And you can't tell anybody even the story about how you're getting screwed. Who the fuck says the United States of America? You might say China, you might go Korea, this and that, and you'd be right? But it's happening here, and the problem is this is one of the dirty problems. So how do we answer that? We got to get shit out in sunlight, as they say. People, when's the last time you were around the water cooler at work and someone brought up the Invention Secrecy Act, right? It just does. It's not.
Doesn't happen.
It's hidden.
Doesn't happen. it's it kind of scares me in theory, and like just thinking about that, because at any moment the next big thing, because they're they're not going to green light any alternative propulsion that puts their earnings and lifestyle at risk when they have investments into the oil and then are inside trading and have such you know, have made a career out of a job that was never supposed to be a career thing.
You nailed it. So for people that don't know and want to do a little bit of research, one of the things that they really try to lock up with the Invention Secrecy Act was solar panels. And I'm sure the more beneficial ones they have is, but so much had got out about it from other countries they couldn't. But what they were going to say is the ability to harness the sun into electricity is a defense advantage, and now the rest of the world can't have it. You know, I'm not a tree hugging green energy guy, but it's like, give me a fucking break. Like, you know, that was going to be buried. And that's the process of how they think. You know,
It almost worked.
damn well. And I guarantee what we have right now is nowhere near capable what the military is pulling from solar panels, which is more of the answer the world needs.
Elon Musk said, now again, I'm not sure exactly if he's right, but he said on Joe Rogan, the Joe Rogan experience, that like the small town, like the size wise, if you filled it with solar panels, could run the United States like for 3 to 5 years. You know, I'm not, again, I'm
Yeah.
probably misquoting a little bit, but something that was like super reasonable. And it was like, wait, why aren't we doing this? It's because they can't put a meter on things like that. And this is
You
where it all
got it.
began.
You got it, because, you know, without getting into my life and some of the projects I've worked on, you know, I used to be involved in essentially a group that would do that, where we go in and especially for, you know, groups of people, as I'll word it, who aren't doing real well or there's not jobs in this sort of environments, find grants to put solar panels up in the field. And you run all the lines. And now they've got free energy for the amount of time that, you know, the life extended warranty of that. Like, this
Yep.
shit does actually work. But do you think your electric company wants to knock out the industry that they have?
No,
And they're legally allowed to lobby
against it.
so that you can control your electric bill.
Yep.
So it's multiple things where the United States advantages of being a free country is being taken advantage of from the calls coming from within inside.
Spot on. Spot on. As of a couple days ago, because I don't want to give an exact time frame, but the beginning of UFO files have begun to be released. Do you expect anything to happen? Do you expect that any disclosure will occur over the next 30 to 90 days, like people like David Grush are saying?
So, no, however, my opinion will vary. And the reason it varies is because, you know, I have a little bit of knowledge on it. Again, I can't go into the details, but, you know, I'm still headed to DC. I'm actually not you know, I haven't been blackballed or blacklisted from the people that really matter
Yeah.
in these industries. Now, it doesn't mean that we've got a deal worked out yet, but they still have to talk to me. And so I do have various information. And from what I've been told is that one of the next rounds that comes out is going to deal more with stories. So rather than getting the visual of this, now you're going to get a story of someone's been abducted in Kansas sort of thing. And what my fear is that just like the photos, everybody's going to jump on that and say, well, it came from the FBI files, it came from NASA, it must be true.
Right.
When it's not, it's just a record. So I believe the stories are coming. My other worry is, such as the video of the Hellcat that hit the UAP and undetected, which, looking at the video, that's not what happened. And I've seen that video before. I've covered that a little bit before. That video is super
You saw
fishy.
it before it was released in the congressional hearing.
That video, so people understand, was shopped around to multiple people. Burleson said it was dead dropped. I don't know what that means exactly, but
Dead drop just means that.
no. How it was dead dropped to him, because I'll explain how it became to me and others. And how that worked is everybody has messaging service, Signal, Telegram, whatever it may be. And you don't actually have to send your phone number, right? So I could text you, and all you know is whatever name I put in there. Maybe I'm Bob. And you get something from me, and then I delete my account. And now you've got a video of something, and Bob's long gone, and there's no way to track down Bob. So
I had something similar happen to me.
that's how it came to me.
Someone threatened me and then just disappeared out of my inbox.
Right. So, and I don't know if that's what he means. I would hope to God that someone at the house can't dead drop something under your door like anthrax and nobody picks it up on security. But somehow he got a hold of it, right? Other people, I'm not going to say their names, but what you have to ask yourself is who would have my phone number, Burleson's phone number, and some committee members in both the House and Senate in order to shop a video that is oftentimes longer in duration or a different cut.
A different cut?
A different cut. So you see it hit and you don't know what happened. It's got some tailings. Somebody else sees it and it goes down.
What goes down?
The alleged UAP, which is obviously not a UAP. So then that makes it a video that, and we've had people kind of walk through this, right? Maybe it hit a balloon and it crashed. Maybe it's this and that. So now you've propped up a video and they've kind of set you up to put this out. And then they can always hold that back and be like, well, now that it's got all this hype, let's release a video that shows something different because they want to discredit you. So I'm setting that up to say when the videos come, because we're hearing about them, some of them are going to blow our mind and some of them are going to, change our view of the world. Don't do narrative control. You got to really analyze these for yourself. And again, that's why I say, do I think disclosures coming? No, not from this. What we need to see is AARO's 2 or 3% that they couldn't solve, because that's already went through an analysis. We don't need to see things that appear to be just from a folder that was never analyzed, thrown on the judge's desk, right?
Right. I totally agree with that. Getting into some of the material. Tell me if you can't, but after analyzing it, do you believe that this material was made on this planet?
It comes from earthly material, meaning there's only so many elements we have, right? So some of the stories that others have said where it's not on the periodic table, I know nothing about that. What I can tell you is definitely can pull everything you need on a raw format from the ground. The trick really is this idea of you have to have a certain material from another planet. It's what it goes through in manufacturing that makes it what it is. That's the specialty.
Okay, next question. The isotope ratios, do they match the manufacturing process of this world?
Yes. However, again, you're getting into things where when you get to advanced technology, just like with physics, what do we keep hearing? It defies physics. We're looking at the past and not the future. So when you think of the forefront of technology, the idea that something wouldn't match that with isotopes would almost leave more credence to this is the top level of what we have hidden that's 100 years ahead, not necessarily aliens made it in their warehouse. So these are the problems I have with these questions. What I can tell you is we went through all this with SSCI, right? Because I only talked to AARO very briefly. They were mainly covering the international threats, this, that. I had a Dropbox, I had a number I had to turn stuff over to, right? Followed all that. And at the same time, SSCI is really the one that I'm dealing with because those two groups hated each other. Mm-hmm. And so SSCI is the SCIF I keep going back in, and then they call and get things verified. So at SCI, we worked through this. And what it came down to is Okay, well, next step, because we'll use Tim Phillips' words, right? Because again, ITAR has an umbrella. People don't understand this. When they went to court, got brought to court, one of the questions for the Department of State was, what is the definition of what you cover and not cover? Because they just try to reach out to someone and be like, oh, you've made an ITAR violation. You're in deep shit. And in court, they said they couldn't actually identify what was or what wasn't covered. It was their terminology that it wasn't just ever going umbrella. So in other words, if they want to fucking pin something on you, they can. So I try to speak with what's been released. Tim Phillips said, I got photos and I got material, right? Concentrate on the photos. If you can have any idea of who SSCI staffs, I'm not going to go into it. You got all the pros from all the agencies, including NGA, right? You've got everybody, and you've got a direct link over there to call and verify things. And so with experts, you have to turn in metadata, obviously, on the original device, right? All these things have to be checked, and there's a reason you keep going in and in and in. So, again, those are Tim Phillips' words. What ended up happening is that they were using my case to see if AARO was telling them the truth. So they would release some data to them and then essentially ask, is AARO incompetent or are they lying? Because we know this is real, we've verified it's real, but when we ask AARO, AARO tells us some of the stuff that Tim Phillips is trying to twist into the story, right? So
Interesting.
Where am I going with all this? Well, there are secrets, and why I'm not necessarily a deep state guy, the deep state's fucking there, right? Now, I'm not saying they're keeping aliens from us, but everything everybody's talked about and the way these secrets are kept is true. It's just, what is the secret?
What is the secret?
The material, because that was the original question here, is on record at SSCI. And that was one of their hot points. And the reason it was is because even if you can prove a picture is real with metadata and everything else, if they say it's not ours, then you don't know. So then what's next? Now, I'm not going to go too far into the story, but we came to the conclusion that what was next was a data link, because you couldn't argue that. You pull the data link and they go and pull those files, or they won't pull the files for you, you're busted, right? And some other particular items they wanted to look at, like things like, let's look at what's in this and let's go back and look at all the previous stealth codings and see if there's any similarities. Right. So this has all went through an actual process.
Wow.
And it really is who's lying to who. There's no cohesive unit that's investigating this, and people have to remember that. That's before you throw even the wild card of the House into this.
Right. Right.
But at the top level, this is what's going on.
Doesn't give me solace for some reason. It gives me a bit of gonna be honest, it makes me a little unsettled.
You asked me if I thought disclosure was coming. Now you see why I say it's sure the hell not going to be released or come from the government. It just...
You said Roswell you didn't think happened?
Something happened, just not the spacecraft.
What do you... So, like, you know the material they talked about that, like, crumpled up? And
I've heard
up?
it, but again, and I've seen the picture, but is that... Because, it's one of them things where there's not evidence, you say, oh, well, they've hid that or distorted it. But in reality, what would you do? Well, you would hide it or distort it. But for me, because a lot of people don't understand, some of the things that we told them are coming and that have happened, and most people don't know about them, and I can't talk about them here, but let's just go back to the Chinese spy balloons, right? And this is one of the things I told them. If anyone comes in and briefs you on that and they say surveillance, throw them out of the fucking room. Because anytime they say that afterwards, they're always like, but I don't know why, because they got satellites and they got, people on the ground, because that's not it. You have to study the psychological warfare and what the advantage is, right? So back, World Wars was going on and you get into Roswell, one of the things that Japan was going to do was send incendiary balloons, which if it wasn't for the Chinese spy balloon would sound like a ridiculous half-ass plan, but now people understand how jet streams really
really function.
work.
Yeah.
And the plan was they were going to send so many of them, they fall into, Yellowstone, forest fires, cities.
And just engulf the country.
And for anybody, especially those in California, that know you can't fucking put the fire out. So what that says is you're being attacked in your own borders, and it's not because there's balloons. You just think they're over here on your property. So what do? You say, look, sorry, such and such country, but we're getting the shit beat out of us. You pull all of our soldiers back here, which is what the plan. So now what happens in World War II if the U.S. brings everybody back because the fucking United States is on fire and we're being attacked from within?
The Nazis take over Europe.
It doesn't look good. So this is still something to this day that is used. And so what happened with the Chinese spy balloon? Go back and look. Every single politician turned on the other group. Every Republican said it was the Democrats' fault. The Democrats said it was the Republicans' fault. Shoot them down. What the fuck's going on? All hell broke loose exactly like they wanted to fucking see. That was the point of
the
balloons. So what's going to happen? It
wasn't to collect data from the ground. It was to collect response.
Right now, again, if China jumps into Taiwan and we get involved, the war won't be in Taiwan. That's not how they'll fight the United States. What do we know about drones over sensitive sites in the United States and military bases? That's the signal. We fucking got you. And what are you going to have to do with all your equipment and your warships, right? Where do they come from? Off the coast, right? On Langley, you have to bring all that shit back here, and then they go walk right into Taiwan and win. This is the true definition of the 3D chess. But people just want to think so simple about how this all progresses. But everything has a reason. So on the Roswell, I'm still in the book that it was essentially a detection balloon for looking, which is what the plan was, so you could detect the balloons coming from Japan through the jet streams that crashed.
Understood.
Because it makes more sense to me, because I don't have ability to go back to Roswell in a time machine and get the truth. And that's my problem with a lot of people's stories.
Getting into a little bit of more speculative stuff here, now that we've, covered a lot of the black and white of what you've gone through, has it opened up your mind in the sense that, do you believe that the phenomena is real?
So, like I said, I'm always an open mind. One of the recent things that has been it's not a discovery, but that my knowledge base has come into, is things are so poor right now. Agencies or military branches, especially within the funding, if someone comes to them with the dreaded UAP, I've seen a UAP or I've got something, they call me. And they say, can you talk to this guy who's got this company, right? And it's not because some random person said that. There's always some legitimacy of why. I mean, it's already kind of been through the filter of, does this guy look real or not? And one of the questions I've been asked by a lot of people is about radiation. And I always tell them, no, such as the story I was talking about. There's no radiation there. And they've always brought that up, that's the big defining moment. So this particular technology that I went down and looked at for this company is, and I'm not going to get into it too much, but basically you have radiation in the sky that is able to be, actually with scientific instruments, the results pulled down that says it's there. You can't argue that. Skies like, for instance, over Kansas or Missouri or Massachusetts, you can't have that sort of radiation spike to the point where these particular individuals think that it's a craft. Now, their equipment isn't set up like mine is to, pull that sort of data. Right, but they measure the radiation spikes. And so the radiation spikes say it's true. So how do I look at that? I say, A, we got to figure out what the fuck it is anyway.
Right.
Because how they were doing it and what that byproduct may be, someone else is going to figure it out. And then you don't have to send a nuke over in the Golden Dome. Sure the hell isn't going to pick something up that's launched from the ground 50 foot up by a foreign national. And now we've all got radiation, which has a bit of a shelf life in your water system and things.
Yeah.
So With that said, that's the first time I've seen verifiable information and data that says there is that possibility, and that's one of the things I want to go and look at, because I still have an open mind, but people don't like to hear it. Unless you finance this, it doesn't go. Because when I put stuff up, and you put stuff up for radiation spikes, that's not the same fucking drone. It's going to be difficult to find something to survive. We've figured out a way to do it, but I'm just saying, like, people need to focus.
It's not like you can line it in lead. It's
yeah,
too heavy.
right. And then you got to still be able to get the data. So what good would it be anyway if it was in a casing? So these are the things that I'm trying to find out, and I'm trying to move forward on. But again, even the representatives that could help me go forward on this with funding are all really centered around this idea of, if it doesn't have to do with psionics, NHI, or orbs, or any of the local celebrities, they don't want to hear about it. And it's like, start with the low-hanging fruit, right? Instead of just saying this and that, let's start at the drones that are over military bases. Let's work our way up. I fucking promise you, you will get to whatever's in the sky.
Why do you think they don't go after cases like Bob Salas or Dave Schindele or Mario Woods or the Loring Air Force Base? Why do you think they don't seem to have an interest in finding out what's shutting our nuclear weapons off, or turning them on, or just breaching the facility? Your case really reminds me of Rendlesham.
Okay, yeah, I know by
Rendlesham
that name.
Forest.
Right.
Your case sounds a lot like that, where it's the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a craft inside of that light that can be seen, and it then, but I'm not saying that that's exactly what it was. I'm just drawing connections here. But why do you but RAF Bentwaters was one of the most strategic bases for the U.S. During the Cold War. So there was absolutely nuclear weapons at that facility. These things are showing the ability to interact with our most sensitive facilities and weaponry. If that's not a national security threat, what is?
Well, I don't know all the stories, but I know some of them. And so, in fairness to them, let me kind of do this as everybody's just John Doe here.
Yeah.
Right. Take any of those cases, and I say to you, okay, Ty, show me the proof. And I'm not saying I don't listen to them or believe them. I'm just saying, as it applies to the government, a story doesn't mean anything. Even if you had a photo of a blob or an orb and you're claiming it did this, doesn't mean anything. And like we're going to see, even an orb that shoots off and this and that, they feel free to release. You really got to bring the fucking goods.
There's one video that comes to mind. And if this came out, I would love to see your reaction to it, because this guy named Robert Jacobs, he essentially what he did was they would shoot up the missile, the rocket,
Okay.
the dummy nuclear warhead.
Yeah.
So I think it was an Atlas at the time. And if that's correct, if that sounds right, they shot the missile up, and he was the one responsible for videotaping it.
Okay.
Or recording it. And he says that the warhead got up into the, where it was supposed to be, or, the general vicinity. And then this craft just flies into frame. And he says that, the dummy warhead is represented by my thumb. Mm-hmm. This craft is represented by my finger. Flies in, shoots a beam into the top, flies, then moves up, shoots another beam, moves over, shoots another beam, and then moves over, hits it again, and then the dummy warhead tumbles out of the sky. The next day he's called in by the senior command, and they ask him, were you guys messing around? And they showed him the footage of this craft entering frame and then exiting the same way it entered. So showing clear, intelligent control, in the late 70s, shooting a dummy warhead out of the sky. a video like that, I think, do you think that could do, maybe a little bit more than what we're seeing?
There's a long list of videos where I say, yeah, if you could get it. And then there's the problem. Now, you go back to my story, right? Even if you bring the goods with metadata, then they say it's not ours, right? And then you have to bring the data link and you work on and on until you can really fucking pin them on something. They've got a system, as they've ran before, to either come after you, right? Make people not listen to you. You're crazy, not safe to have around your family, to go against your story. I mean, let's think of one more recent, like the Nimitz encounter, right? Guess what? The radar's gone. You got stories. Now, how many years has it been? 20 plus? It's fading off. This is the fucking system. So if there's a video, that's the only thing from that story. Now, again, because I don't know the people or anything else, this isn't me going after them. This isn't me saying they're lying. I'm just saying this is the way the system works, where they're just going to try and date you out of the public eye. And if you don't have the proof, you got nothing. Again, it's not that the story couldn't be true. I'm just saying when you verse the government, it's a different fucking story trying to get their secrets out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you can share that that would help the community in terms of, what to do if they experience something like you have?
Right. So this is a really good thing to point out because, again, we've been talking through this, and different people when I talk to might say, "Oh, I would have panicked," or "Oh, I would have done this." You have to turn into a data collection person. You need to know where you're standing when it happens. All right. It doesn't have to be exact, but if you know the area especially, you'll know I was on this corner about halfway into this field. Take note of that. What time it is vitally important because if you don't know satellites, they're fucking fast. Okay, 2 or 3 minutes off, and try and use your phone, which would be generally correct versus a car clock or something, right?
Right.
You got to get all the data you can. Now, here's the sad part. If you only see a light that goes across the sky, even if it does something that it shouldn't be able to do, you got nothing, even with the date and the time. You're most likely never going to be able to get a video of it, or your phone's not going to want to pick it up. These are the challenges you should think about ahead of time. So what's more valuable? You kind of got to say that in your head. What's more valuable spending my time or my eyes on versus saying, oh shit, I pulled my phone out and I was trying to adjust it and it was a blurry, and people are saying, well, what else is going around? Did you look anywhere else in the sky? This is, you didn't check the time because you're trying to get a video. Granted, it should be time on it. So it's a per case basis. But, I'm not trying to be the Debbie Downer here, but if that's all you got, including with AARO, you don't got a fucking thing.
It's just another story. Yeah, again, it's just another bad example of nothing that can be.
I'm not saying it didn't affect your life. If you've seen something, you got visited in the middle of the night, people will usually tell me stories and say, I know this sounds crazy, or if I wasn't you, I'd never believe it. And I'm like, yeah, you just fucking said what the public is going to think. And then if you tell it to me whenever I hear a story or I participate in spaces, I try to be a pretty involved, don't shy away from, speaking to people, right? Is like, was there any data in this I could use? So you spend 2 hours on a spaces, tell me about all this stuff. I don't have the location, I don't have the data, I don't have the time. There's no real information I can go back and look at or try and get verified. You have a story, it affected your life. I respect that. But overall, to the movement, you don't have a fucking thing.
It's a harsh reality, but I think it's one that needs to be said.
I'm being harsh today so people understand this, because you don't move forward with stories is where I'm going with this.
100%.
And we've kind of learned that from some of the hearings. So not everybody, but I'm not saying they're lying.
Case in point.
But you gotta fucking bring more than what you're getting.
Absolutely. And what do you make of some of these politicians and representatives of whether it's private companies, and stuff like that, just military industrial complex. What do you make of some of these people coming out against investigating UAPs because they think it's demonic or angels and demons, and we shouldn't be dabbling with that? What do you make of them turning around? Like, we need them to be the ones to push this through, not to turn around and try to be the experts.
Yeah.
Right? Yet they seem to have positioned themselves as all of a sudden the experts now, and they're saying, it's demons. Our vice president came out and said he thought UFOs were demonic. Like, come on.
So, because there's a good example that just happened, I'm going to point to a little bit, and that was with the preachers that just came out and said they were on a conference call and they heard all this information.
It's a good example.
I'm not going to get into who said what or what I believe, but what I will say is, and let's go ahead and torch the place here. If I say to you on angels and demons, and I say, what's the evidence, right? I'm not talking about personal stories or you've seen something and you had people with you, right? The studios had this, had that.
You're talking about, like, what video, what metadata?
What proof do you have for angels or demons? You can have proof that something happened, but you got to convince someone. What would you bring to the government that would be valid? And unfortunately, they wouldn't take that, just like they won't of whatnot. Like you've been through already. They come up with, maybe this happened because,
But don't you find it weird that they make you swear on a Bible?
Well, this is kind of where I'm going with this. So now we jump into, the point of that is you don't have anything other than belief. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. I'm saying what to present. Because, again, there's always someone that will say, well, there was too much, right? Too much pressure on the screw, right? That's the issue here. So...
That happened to me.
Right. Let's kind of go through now church, which is where we're going to torch the place. What evidence do we have? You pick the God, because there's more than one, of any religion of proof. Okay? And now, again, I'm not going to go into different religions, but like you get into things.
They're all remarkably similar.
And it's remarkably similar, but they're also not just the sky, it's the angle where it's like, there was this God that did this, and whether it be turn the water into wine or gave somebody certain stones to decipher, but he didn't show them to anybody, and he was the only one that got told how to do it. This is the genesis of all these different religions. Now, people are going to be pissed about this, but what I'm trying to say is, if there's no proof for one, and then that being this, demons and whatnot thing, and then the UFO thing, and there's no proof for the other, but the other, right, and we'll talk about one nation under God, is built on that, right? It's everywhere you swear on a Bible, like you pointed out. You've already got a belief system that is accepted. There will never be an elected official or a president that won't ever have to announce what church he goes to. I mean, this is what we expect. Not just accept, but if you're not in church, you sure the hell aren't going to be my president. It's on our money. So that is an accepted answer, and that's how that's going to be pushed, is how could it not be, right? We swear on a Bible. We do this, we do that. So that's actually, and I'm not saying that's not his own personal feelings, right? But that's actually the easiest answer to give, other than to say it's all BS, because that would be accepted. The whole thing I mentioned with the preachers is vultures know where there's the dead body and the money. They can sniff it anywhere. You are in an industry where you have to provide zero proof, and I don't want to get too personal and bring up people's bad memories, but you have a God where you say they're the creator. You can never see him. If I right now say show me, or I say strike me down, won't happen. Kids getting molested in the church by their priest. Good people dying, bad people being rich, and it's all part of God's plan. Right? That's what we tell ourselves. It's all part of God's plan. So that's the industry they're in.
It happens for a reason, is what they say.
Happens for a reason. It's got, you got to trust it.
What reason is there for kids to be...
And how is that a better fucking place, right?
Tell me.
So
tell me how that works.
It's an industry of bullshit, okay? And then you now put into that the UFO part of people that they prey on, because they say, what are you really believing in? And this is a lot of the community. So it was such an easy way, and look at their counts of viewers, followers, right? these are the sort of people that are coming into the community that are being cheered on because they're telling the story you want. So my answer to that is no, I don't see any angels and demons. I've certainly not ran into any case where it's that, but it still is the easiest answer. I know it sounded odd when he said it, but again, all I would have to do would be like, look at the back of your dollar bill, right? Pledge of Allegiance, one nation under God, right? Where did you who did you get married by? I mean, it's implemented in our system.
Yeah.
So if you don't want to say aliens, you don't want to say bullshit, you're going to just say angels and demons.
Yeah, that's very true. That is very true. Yep. Default back to your core, core religious doctrine like that.
Yeah.
That it's that default answer that they can give.
So just real fast, if you say aliens and people don't believe with you, they say you're crazy. I mean, that's the common thing. If you believe in God and I say I don't believe in that, no one says, oh, that person's crazy because they believe in that. They're just like, yeah, I'm not religious. It's such an easier calm,
But again, forgive me, but by definition, an angel or a demon would be a what? Non-human intelligence. I'm not calling it aliens.
Yeah.
I find that word to be kind of like too much in a box. And I think AARO has showed people that why do they use only the word extraterrestrial? It's a way of lying by omission, right? You're saying that we have no evidence of extraterrestrial life. Well, no one said that's exactly what we thought it was. The UN UFO or UAP is unidentified.
Big key there.
Right?
Yeah.
So no one ever wanted you to go looking just for extraterrestrials. It could be interdimensional, ultra-terrestrial. And so I find the words to be chosen very specifically.
I'll harp on this just a little bit more, just so I'm clear on my position on it, which is that, you look into the Bible and you look at a globe, if anyone still has one. I'm getting dated, but
I do have one upstairs.
Everything that happened in the Bible happened in Israel, not the world.
Isn't that weird?
So, again, if you believe that 2 of every animal were put on the ark and so on. So now we're using the same book to describe what is an angel or what is a demon. And this is, of course, not that there's not religion, there's not something, I believe there's something that happens afterwards. It just means, and we've talked about this before, when man touches something, it just turns to stories and ruins what the truth is. So
hyperbole.
Angels and demons, or angel being any non-human intelligence, I don't think was thought out in that way. And I think people who believe in this are pulling that long stretch, because eventually the story was, and I think you and I have talked about this, the first saucer that got put in a newspaper was described as moving like a saucer on water, not actually
a saucer. But then everyone started to see
saucer, right? So this is kind of what my problem is with this, where it's like, then we thought they were coming from Mars and outer space. Now most people will kind of agree, like, we've got enough up there and things that, like, that's probably not happened. So now it's in the sea, it's interdimensional. Could be, but I feel like people are just working through formulating a narrative where it could still be angels or demons because it's not human intelligence. It's like you're moving the goalposts.
I never really looked at it like that.
Just again, if you can show up and turn water into wine, or any of this stuff. My view of this.
Well, what do you make of things like Stargate? We know the government has looked into things that would seem like magic.
Yeah.
Right, and had success, allegedly. So are you saying that do you think this has all been conflated to some degree?
I would say from the people, I won't drop any names right now because I've got enough battles, but that have accolades of working for agencies for decades. You can be pretty fucking crazy and still work for an agency, and oddly enough, a lot of them were involved in this. Now, with that said, even from my own crew, there's this quote that basically goes like, there's a fine line between genius and madman. And it's true.
Very much
and the problem is, the madman isn't actually a bad thing if you don't go over their full fucking term, right? So what I'm saying is, I can show you all of the data we pulled, the videos, the metadata of something doing something that defies physics, right? What a regular, even a high level physicist will tell me is that's not possible because the math doesn't. And it's like, well, we verified everything we're showing you, right? So obviously it is fucking possible. So I have to deal with
So obviously we don't have an understanding
madmen
of physics.
because they're the only ones that'll be like, let me fucking figure out how this, like, let me come up with something. So again, there is a value to these people in the community. I don't want to come out like I'm just hitting them. It's just sometimes, and I can tell you again because I work with a lot of these people, some of their ideas or whatnot could be out there. But did the government look into it? Yeah, and they also were staring at goats. And again, we need the fucking data. If you can't put the data down, which is what AARO uses against you, it's still just a fucking story. What I want to say, kind of lastly on that is, as humans, you believe one of two things for the most part. One story is your God created everyone, which means out of nothing. And no matter what religion you're in, he spoke to somebody or he showed himself to somebody, or he's, not recently, obviously, but the origin of the religion. The second part is you believe that we were some sort of, bacteria or microbe on a rock, and then we went through this, we went through that, and monkeys and cavemen, and
Evolution.
and we're here, evolution, okay? So look at both of those. How did we get to where we are right now? If it's our technology, if God can speak to you through your mind, how come he couldn't have just told somebody how the fuck to make this? If we've advanced from bacteria on a fucking rock, you're telling me we couldn't come up with a craft that does exactly what the Nimitz encountered? I mean, we've been flying for a little over 100 years. So it's not that I don't think people should consider it, but both of those answers come down to it still would have been human made, right? So that's kind of where I'm stuck at, because I can't find other people's proof, which is why I gave up on the where did it come from
Part of it.
because it's just not worth the time.
It's so much of a.
I'll never get those answers.
So much of a rabbit hole.
I don't have access to that. I know what I can do now, and that's the key for me going forward.
Is there any question I missed? Are you a religious man?
I consider myself highly religious. Don't attend church.
Do you think there's an afterlife, or?
There is definitely something that happens when you pass away. I don't know if I would go as far as afterlife, because even if you look at religions, Catholics, Jehovah's Witnesses, some religions don't even have a hell. They only have a heaven. But when you analyze that, it's always everybody's getting along, and it's like, well, then that's not the people that died. So is everybody a zombie that got their brain piffed, and everybody just says, yeah, hi, how are you? Like, that's not where I would want to.
It's not what I would call
go,
heaven.
right? I want the tie I fucking knew, right? Like, that's how you think about family. So again, there's so many problems in those stories, but I do feel pretty confident that when you pass away, something happens. I just don't have the answer of what, and I'm pretty sure what we've been taught everywhere is probably not the right story.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'd fall into that same category of saying that I don't think we have it right, not even close. Because, and the reason I say that is because the one thing the universe doesn't seem to be is wasteful. It just doesn't waste anything. And seems weird that this would be all just for nothing, right? So.
For sure. I mean, there's this question that's always like, do you think someone else is out there? And even people that are they're detested by the community, like Kirkpatrick, would be like, yeah, statistically, there has to be another life form. They usually say, in this universe, not galaxy. And, if you actually talk to someone that does that, like, believe it or not, there's people that do this. Now, if anyone that's seen Moneyball knows now about the professions, statisticians and whatnot, but they would actually tell you that if you looked at that modern, it would be the other way around. Because it's so rare, it's almost impossible to think that it would happen somewhere else, versus the universe is so big, it's got to happen again. There's two ways to look at that. To phrase that, right? So again, we're pretty confident there's nothing else in our galaxy. There's no, how would you know, right? But again, it may just be the one thing. Now, with that said,
That scares me more.
well, here's what I always say, because this is what I think about, right? Like, I don't think about the aliens. I don't think about where did this come from. I view it in this sense. One of the things that happen when we go into SSCI is they kind of want to know, like, how to battle with AARO, right? So in every fucking briefing, I had this section called Walking Down a Physicist. And what that meant was they'd be like, well, they told us this, they told us that, right? Not possible, defies physics. So I would start with things that everybody agrees on, including NASA, which is, there's a particular planet that's so bright, it defies the laws of physics, it should have exploded, planet, star, right? And so that defies physics. Everybody agrees. It's all been validated on information. So we know physics can be defied. Look at the sun. Every day of your life, the sun's been up there. It's always 10 years away. We've never been able to replicate a source that can just fill itself back up. There's so many instances, and you get back down here to Earth, and we point out things like there was this mystery on you spin magnets around and it changes the magnetic field.
Right.
And that was discovered in a way that when they wanted to test it, they literally got drills, like you would drill a hole in your wall, put magnets on the end, and they got some high-dollar monitoring equipment.
Yeah.
But it's like, how often have we had magnets and drills? No one's discovered this stuff. So this idea of, like, we know what physics are. Now, I would walk that all the way back from the universe. And where I would start with is, even though there's theories, where does the universe end? We've actually been measuring it for a long time, and we know it's growing.
Yeah.
But here's the problem. We said end. You can't define volume without knowing the parameters, and nothing can just end. What's on the other side? What's holding this thing in place floating? Oh, it's, this area of nothing. Well, how long does the nothing go on? Because it's obviously got to be something. We're growing into it. Oh, well, it goes this way. Okay, well, what's holding that in place? And you'll never get to a fucking answer of what's holding everything into place, because something would have to be holding it into place.
And on
and on. And you can't say it goes on forever, because there's no fucking way for anything to ever go on forever. So you have two possibilities, and they're both fucking impossible. So the people that want to believe in different things, I never try and come at them too hard, because it's like, we got to admit, we live in an impossible fucking world. The simulation theory, I've never bothered to answer.
But doesn't it, for all the reasons you just listed?
But it's because it's not the right question. If you want to say to me, do you think we're in somebody's video station, video game, I'm fine with that, but it doesn't answer the question, because whatever 5-foot-tall lizard people are playing this on their PS5, they have to have a sky. Where does their fucking sky end, and what's holding their galaxy in place? And so that's my question, is the big one of, like, so it's not that I don't entertain it. It's that you're asking, for me, that's not the fucking question I want to know.
Brains break at certain points of that. You go,
right. So, again, that's fine, but you still would have to have someone running it, and then you get back into the questions. Where the fuck does all this end? Because it can't also go on forever. So anything is possible is kind of my end note. Doesn't mean everything's possible, but
anything
possible.
is possible.
Correct.
So, and I've actually never liked defies physics. It's like, because that suggests that we have a full understanding of the universe's properties. And I think that's fair to say that we do not, if things are already defying those.
You can't say that and also agree that there's multiple examples that we know defy physics. You can't say both. And that's why I would give them that ammo to go in and be like, oh, really?
Right.
Explain the sun to me then.
Right. Thank you for having the courage to answer these questions. Is there anything that you want to tell people before we wrap up?
I'll catch people up to where I am today. Like I've always said, some people say where to find you. If I show up, I show up, just like here. Same way online. That's just kind of how I am. I try to be, and I feel like I've easily been in more spaces, not because I do a whole lot. It's just everybody else, especially whistleblowers, and I understand why are kind of laying low, but I'm usually out there. My story will stand. I've got legs. But I'm working on things still within the government. We're getting ready to head up to D.C. In a couple days, and we've caught attention of lots of people, and that includes the executive branch as we speak about. Reason B, and think what you want about people, but when you go through what I went through for multiple years, and the same thing the SSCI said is like, well, you've already essentially been run through the ringer by all these other branches that have validated you. Now we come up here and validate you. That's what the executive branch wanted. Even though you've got one team kind of working the what if it's aliens, there's another team wanting the actual answers of what the fuck's in the sky.
Yeah.
And that happens to be just me. So I'm doing a lot behind the scenes. Can't always tell people, but there is a lot going on. Try not to ruin it. If you don't have something better or some validation would be my only encouragement to end it on. Let the process play out here.
I think a lot of people do need to find their place, and they don't have that, like I know what my place is, right?
Well,
is to facilitate stories, and sometimes I help facilitate people with other people. I know what my job is. More people need to know what they need to do.
we probably should have ended it because now I'm going to come down kind of hard on people just because I'm going to make that point, right?
We could always cut it out.
No, well, let's put
Leave
this
it
in.
in.
I want to
He's like,
leave it
leave
in. Okay,
this
so
in.
I'm going to say something that sounds incredibly harsh, and most people want to turn this off. Don't, because I want to explain what it means. Probably not what you think.
All
it
right,
means.
zoom in on his face now, just for this part. No, I'm just kidding.
Everyone that's listening to this, okay, don't turn this off. Hear me out. Is a nobody. Sounds terrible. Now I work with my kids, schools. I preach the opposite of that, right? Everybody's a somebody. Everybody has a place in the world. So then what do I mean? What I mean is this. We've been through this. If I give you the secret sauce to what's in the stealth coding of these things that can do this, can you go back and look at the files of all of our various stealth codings as classified? No. If I tell you what satellite you need to pull this, and this from, can you do that? No. If I give you GPS, date, time, and stamp, I'm not talking about a trial to, flight tracker, because that shit doesn't show up on that. Can you pull it? No. And people have to understand that like, you have to go about things differently than you are on both sides. Skeptics and folks that
That's a
are
good
telling their
point.
story. And if you're not willing to fight the government, you won't get there. And if you fight the government to beat them, you got to play on their field by their rules. Everybody keeps trying to move well, if we get the UAPDA, we'll get the files released. Sure the fuck won't. They're going to keep that shit hidden. So again, my method, whether people like it or not, is to play on their field by their rules and try and fucking beat them there.
Love it. That's such a good place to end on. Dude, thank you. You've been absolutely wonderful, and go fight for us, right?
I'm telling you, answers are possible to get, and hopefully when I get them,
You'll be able to. Well, I hope you'll come back and share them.
I'll be back. And if I ever go missing, hopefully it's for a good reason,
Okay.
not the opposite.
Yeah, right. Thank you so much for being here, man. Good luck with everything that you're about to go try and do. If you always have an open door here. And thank you everyone for watching. Of course, we usually do film. We always ask, respectfully, what people want, and we're always willing to accommodate. And if someone doesn't want to be seen on camera, I respect that, and I respect why you do, why you did ask that. And for anyone else who thinks that you have to go on camera or have to be seen, or can't protect your family, just know that that's not the case, and we are willing to work with you to better humanity, and not put you in danger. So this is a safe place. We try to make it a safe place. Gene's always great, and
I can vouch for that.
you can attest to that. So thank you again for doing this today. You go by
Whistling Mike, just Mike's fine.
on this on X. So I'll put that
Yeah.
link in the description below for anyone who wants to follow you and hear more of what you have to say. And for everyone else, stay humble, stay kind, and stay vigilant. And we'll see you next time.
The ink is black where the truth was kept, behind the lines while the silence slept. We trace the static on a lonely wire. Searching the desert for a frozen fire. Horizons wide and the night is deep. Promises that the agencies couldn't keep. Wait for the light to break the seal. Nothing remains that they can conceal. In the total disclosure, we find our way through the redacted to the light of day. Through the redacted to the light of day. Check the pulse, scan the sky. Truth doesn't live in a professional lie. Join the signal, join the sound. Until the next time we're breaking ground.
So for 10 minutes, we hit this thing with everything we had to document it.
I just spit my coffee out. That was hilarious. Outtake. All right, I gotta stop hitting this fucking thing. All right, it's too